for the win. Kick is blocked. And SMU falls on it, and we're going to overtime.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Jeanty, the Clydesdales are in. Is Jeanty in? No signal yet. No signal
this
yet.
Is so close.
On 4th and goal. Officials are there. Touchdown!
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
And Reed looking to throw. Nope, not for long. Takes off running and will spin down near the goal line. And they will shove him into the end zone for a touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Here comes a trick play and a throwback to Ward. This will help his numbers. A touchdown catch. And his 28th touchdown responsible for. It's the tight end Elijah Arroyo with the pass.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
On 3rd down and 7, here comes the pressure. Retzloff reads it, gets up through it. He's got a first down inside the red zone, still going, and he's gone for the touchdown. 29-yard scramble for Jake Retzloff.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go. It is the first week of the college basketball season, but also it's the first week of the college football playoff committee meeting to release their standings tomorrow. And that will, of course, create a lot of feedback. And a lot of people will get a little panic. Fans, don't let the first one get under your skin or get you nervous, although we learned a lot from 2014. Good afternoon. I'm David Smoak with Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina to my left. Garrett Ross is running the mothership, and Emery Winter is making sure he does. We appreciate your time today. A couple of 3 guests today, including Phil Bennett at 5 as normal. We will have Ari Tempkin from Big 12 Radio at 3:40 as normal. And Texas Tech star running back Taj Brooks on a huge weekend for the Red Raiders and a big week coming up will join us today at 4:25, and we'll have a Big 12 Bowlsby pod to look at also today as well. Here are the list of the 5 unbeaten teams. Raise your hand if you thought any of these teams would be unbeaten through last weekend.
Only Oregon would be the one I would have said.
All right, Craig?
Only Oregon.
I always believed in BYU. I called this. I totally was behind the Cougars. Knew they were going to run the Big 12. And no, did not see this from BYU. Did not see this from Army. Definitely not Indiana. Miami, not necessarily, but that one's not, I think, incredibly surprising because look at their schedule. It's not when you go and pick up Cam Ward like it was some massive mountain to climb. So that one's not that surprising. And quite frankly, Oregon's not that surprising. That really boils down to who won the Ohio State-Oregon game. So somebody was going to be undefeated. So those top 2 I don't think are all that off. And I think you'd had quite a few people probably would have picked at least one of those, especially Oregon. But the other 3 certainly did not expect that whatsoever.
Oregon had Ohio State somewhat early. It wasn't immediately, but that was one that probably would have kept me from thinking, but not like it was out of the realm. And so there we are with that. Here is the top 25, which had some shake-up in some ways because 2 Big 12 teams, Iowa State and K-State, get knocked out. A&M enjoyed the top 10 for a week. And they reverted back to some bad habits and also some news on their running back in a moment, Le'Veon Moss. So there we are with the top 25. BYU now 9. K-State and Iowa State both dropped. You see Louisville moves in. Pitt falls. Vanderbilt, of course, there they are with a win against Auburn. Colorado up a little bit. Clemson drops. A lot of that going on. And look at Boise State now at number 12.
Yeah, Boise State, I'm this close to picking them to win a playoff game. I don't even care who they play. They're fun. But A&M, sometimes you can't change your spots, and you go and
and beat LSU, the biggest win, and put yourself in first place in the SEC alone, and the SEC alone, and then you said, you know what, it's lonely up here. Let's lose a game and create a logjam and have people thinking, okay, it's still A&M. Now, they have no reason not to beat New Mexico State and Auburn and be 9-2 when they play Texas. But that was not a second half that they want to remember at all.
Yeah, my hater observation here is that you have a team in the good old SEC that finally drops out, and what happens?
Oh, yeah.
As Missouri goes out of the polls. Here comes Vanderbilt back after a 1-week absence.
Yeah.
And then you get to say, well, there's 8 ranked teams, and it's everybody, and it's just like, man, it's like clockwork, buddy. The way that just always gets molded to where there's never really any losses. Like, there's a team always replaces another team, it feels like. So, yeah, Vandy's back in the poll. I mean, good for them. But it was just funny to see that the moment an SEC team actually drops out for once with Missouri, and then here comes another one just to replace them, and nothing changes. It's just it's comical. So I'll say this. Last week I defended the AP poll. AP poll can get the hell on out of here. You're talking, you and I are just never going to agree on the importance of polls, because now all that matters, you're saying don't get worked up, telling people who are clearly going to get worked up by the polls, like, thanks, Dad, but we're not. Like
I didn't say the polls.
The playoff rankings. You told people not to get worked up. They're absolutely going to get worked up over the playoff polls because it's the first playoff polls. It's the official polls. So the AP poll.
You're right, but there's no reason to get worked up because just let this thing ride. But if you have a team involved, you're going to get very worked up.
So, if you got a team involved, of course you're going to get worked up. Like, to say don't get worked up is not going to do any good, because you're absolutely going to do that. And I'm interested to see how with 12 teams that actually works, because you're going to have, 6, 7, 8 times the amount of people that do get worked up over it. So, yeah, I mean, the AP poll's fine and dandy, and it had its place and has its place. But now I'm glad this week we can all turn to the playoff rankings and just start to hate those. And, everybody, I expect, will react to some kind of way to those rankings when they drop tomorrow.
All right. By the way, yes, they've been meeting, the College Football Playoff Committee. They'll have the release tomorrow, which is the most important polls. That's the most important votes are tomorrow. Tomorrow is the College Football Playoff standings. Penn State losing to Ohio State. Had a 10-0 lead. Home. Massive crowd. And I never trusted them. And I was like, no, Ohio State did. And then they get down inside the 5 and they cannot score. Here are a couple of notes on James Franklin. 1-10 against Ohio State. 1-14 against top 5 opponents. I bet a lot of records for some programs or coaches against the top 5, not much better. But 3-18 against the top 10. 13-27 against all ranked opponents with James Franklin as the head coach. And then on top of that, it's not like it's just him. Penn State is 1-23 since 2000 against the top 5, 1-13 against the AP top 5, and then Penn State now has lost 8 straight to Ohio State. Coaches get fired if they don't beat, and I know Penn State has Pitt. They get fired if they don't beat the people they have to beat. Osborne didn't get fired, but he was under the gun in the late 70s. We know Texas and OU coaches can get fired if you don't beat Oklahoma or you don't beat Texas. Auburn and Alabama. That is the way it is, and he has just struggled. Not a lot of people have beaten Ohio State. We got to say that, but you got to win at least a couple of more of those 3 games.
Sometimes you do. I mean, you got to do it sometimes. They don't. And he, not only that, they play the most boring games against those teams. Now, they'll turn around and they got Maryland or somebody, they'll score 38 against Maryland in a quarter. And then you'll be like, well, I know that Ohio State's better, but where is this dynamic play calling? What happens against Ohio State? Look, Ryan Day's under the gun because he can't win big games, right? And he's been more successful than James Franklin has.
And he can't beat Michigan.
And he can't beat Michigan. Yeah. Right. Well, James Franklin, I think he deserves some of the scrutiny. And look, he got in a fan's face, which is the stupidest thing for a coach to do. Bro, you make $10 million. $10 million. You get $10 million because occasionally a-holes are going to say some things to you. All right? That's why you get $10 million. You get $10 million, and I'm not defending the guy. That was rude, but no way. Like, you gotta start winning some of these games.
By the way, Paul, Craig, go ahead and say what you just said. I thought Pittsburgh and Penn State play quite a bit. They don't.
They barely ever play. I mean, they've played twice since 2000, or three. Let's see, one, two. They played 4 times since 2000. That's nowhere close to the rivalry you were indicating. But yeah, no, I mean, I get what you were going for there, but those don't apply there. I mean, Paul said it. You said it. You got to beat your rivals, and James Franklin has been incapable of beating the rivals, beating the big teams in the big games, and taking that next step as a program for, well, going on a really long time now at this point. It's been you go back 5-6 years, and the same storyline was out there.
And it's like the same thing.
Yeah. You know, I don't know. And, yeah, it was a bad look on Saturday all the way around. An awful loss, awful aftermath of it, and it's an awful taste in your mouth if you're a Penn State fan. And just you've got to wonder when this is ever going to change. And this team that's pretty good every single year is finally able to take that next step up the mountain and conquer it at some point. But they just cannot get over that last stage of, you know, beating the biggest teams and rattling all that together. So, you know, in this playoff era, I'm sure we'll see Penn State get in there plenty of times as like the 3rd seed out of the Big Ten or whatever, but their inability to be the number 1 seed in the Big Ten and to beat mighty Michigan, beat mighty Ohio State, so on and so forth, that has long been a problem, and it's only growing larger to the point of you could win 10 games a year, but those couple that you don't win are going to cost you your job. And that's unfortunate for James Franklin, but that's the reality of being a big-time college football coach.
Let me ask you this. Let's just say, because I just said this about Boise State. If Boise State plays Penn State in the playoff, who are you picking? I'm picking Boise State more than likely, and it's because the big games, they show up. I will pick anybody who plays Penn State in the playoff, and they're going to fall ass backwards into the thing because their schedule sucks.
Yeah,
so
this was
they're going to lose to Ohio State.
Yeah.
They're going to fall ass backwards into the playoff, and there's going to be a couple teams with maybe 3 losses that deserve to be in above them just because they're better teams and played better people.
Well, it's a great debate. Fongwei Reldman saying that no way 3-loss teams should be ranked ahead of BYU. There's only 1-loss teams that are ranked ahead of them, and not many because they're at number 9 right now. But, yeah, the college football standings, you might see multiple loss teams still be a part of that first one that's released tomorrow night. Now,
yeah, that's like you said, don't worry about no, you absolutely have to worry about the first one if you're in there. You have to see where you're positioned because that thing doesn't change dramatically. And so to his point, you've got Penn State at number 6 in the rankings at 7-1 now. But I don't know what's he referring to about the 3 losses, like in Alabama maybe?
I think he was more joking.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Because there's nobody with 2 losses ranked ahead of him either.
No, but Bama's 2 spots behind with 2 losses. Yeah. But, no, I thought he was actually referring to somebody in general. But, no, I don't think that's a concern whatsoever. But, yeah, you do need to pay close attention to those sets, the way they set it up tomorrow night.
All right, fight on. Is anyone going to give me kudos for picking Texas Tech to upset Iowa State? Everyone in the chat said I was crazy. No, congratulations. Absolutely. Here we go. How about this? Not only a massive win for Tech, especially after the couple of losses they had, they are hosting the Big Noon Kickoff Show in Lubbock. Colorado was in town. That has a lot to do with it, too. But Texas Tech winning that game makes that even more reason to do it. Huge win for Joey McGuire. Their running back, Taj Brooks, joins us in about an hour or so. But a massive win that has scrambled the brains of who may play for the Big 12 championship game if BYU keeps winning. Because the other game that happened was Houston beating K-State. I mean, now you have this scrambled eggs theory. And BYU now trying to stay above all of the crazy.
Yeah, I'll give Tech massive amounts of credit for going to Ames and winning that game. I think Iowa State had been playing with a little bit of fire here these last 2-3 weeks and still winning games, finding ways to win games, but having to squeak by like UCF. And I think that it finally caught up to them, just kind of the way that they were playing. Certainly did not expect it to be this weekend. With Texas Tech, I think that you absolutely are head over heels with the response to the last stretch of games that have been pretty brutal losses after pretty brutal losses, and then also just all the noise last week with the helmet communications and the fact that Tech, even from its own fans, took some flack for making that as public as they did. And I know there's people that have put their feet in the ground and demanded inquiry and all this other stuff. But in general, you did take some bad PR from that, and you wonder how a team responds to all of those things. And they responded really well. Now, I will say this. It's not like they went out and played some great game. So you think hey, if Texas Tech goes to Iowa State and wins that game and upsets them after losing, a couple big games in a row, they must have gone out there and just played their asses off, right? Well, I think they played really hard. I don't think they played necessarily extremely well. I don't think Iowa State obviously played extremely well, but Texas Tech made the plays to win that game, and so I give them a lot of credit for that. They can definitely play better than that, but they played well enough to win on Saturday, and that's all that matters, and that was a huge win for a variety of different reasons, from just the program itself enjoying a big win like that, a big top 25 road win, which has evaded them, and what that means, getting bowl eligible, what that means, but also kind of throwing it back in the faces, because I said last week, I was like, you better go play well this weekend. With all that talk, you better go out and not lay an egg against Iowa State. Well, they didn't lay an egg. They hatched a new one, and that was the best response that you could have had to the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, that was a big, big win for Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders.
And all of a sudden, Baylor is on a 3-game winning streak, and I could not have seen this. Golly, it got to the point where I'd rather have picked up a snake for about a month, really almost for a couple of years. Baylor hosting the team that has owned them in TCU. Baylor had not beaten them at home since 2014, 61-58. TCU had found every way from dominance to ugly to finding a way to kick a field goal in 2022 with the clock running down, and just owned the rivalry. And then all of a sudden, Saturday night, this is Ted Harrison. He's a Baylor graduate who put this as like a 2-minute clip together on the almost identical type finish from 2014, from a run by Shock Linwood to the kick by Chris Callahan to the run by Bryson Washington. It was huge, to the kick by Isaiah Hankins.
Darkness, my friend.
He stays with 3 down.
I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of
Thanks to Ted for putting that together. The matching of the run by Shock Linwood, where they shoved him for about 8 to 10 yards, compared to Bryson Washington, where they shoved him for 8 to 10 yards, setting up almost identical length field goals with no time left but other than the kick. Appreciate him doing that. Listen, and I can't remember, I guess we all, maybe in the text, the last time that Baylor had a win at home that mattered, and again, it's beating a team in TCU that was just above 500, was Oklahoma and Caleb Williams in 2021. Am I right? It had been that long. I mean, a legitimate, important win against a quality opponent, even though TCU's not great at home.
No, TCU is not great, but does that matter? They've lost to not great TCU teams when they've been better. Yes. Like, they needed to beat TCU. They needed to get a big win at home. They've got a 3-game winning streak now. Their coach was on the hot seat. I feel pretty good in saying that he's more or less off of it now, especially if they win another couple games, which they totally should, given the schedule they have coming down and the way they've been playing. That was it wasn't the absolute prettiest game, but there weren't turnovers. They didn't do a lot of stupid things. There were some penalties, a ref show for a while, but for the most part, they kept pace. They kept in it. They made good decisions. They made good plays. The coaching was really good all the way around, I thought, given where they are. You know what? Like, this was huge for Dave Aranda, for the players, for confidence, for the student body. I know that, rushing the field when you beat a 4-4 team is not normally the thing, but you got to understand that, they've been, passing kidney stones, in the stands for, 2 years now. That's what it's felt like
it's been
watching the game. So when they've got some relief, some joy, go and take it.
Yeah,
this is from me, Mr. Field Storming Curmudgeon. Go and do it. They earned that.
That fan base, the young students especially that had not seen that in a long time, enjoyed the moment. Craig?
Yeah, it was an excellent win. It was a really entertaining game. I think if you were just a bystander watching that you probably walked away feeling like you watched a pretty fun football game. Lots of scoring, lots of big plays, lots of back and forth, lead changes and ties, and then obviously a walk-off at the end. So that was just a really fun college football game with a good atmosphere. And it had been, 10 years since they'd won a big game against TCU at home. So, you say it's been 2 years or whatever since they won a big game at home. It's been however long since they beat TCU. It's been 10 years since they beat TCU at home.
Yep.
That's their blood rival. It's one of the protected rivalries in the Big 12 that was put to the side. And, here's one of our main rivalries. And it was a very one-sided rivalry the last 10 years. So they needed that in just that way, but Dave Aranda needed that. This team needed that for bowl eligibility purposes, for big picture, looking into the future purposes. I don't think it just cools off everything and, you can start planning for 2025 already necessarily, but I do think it's cooled off things immensely. You still got to use the fire extinguisher a little bit more to get any of the little remaining flickers. And so we'll see, but I think it leads you into a really positive bye week where you won 3 straight games in your second leg of the season, and you put yourself in a position where you could win up to 8 games and feel really confident about your ability to do that, and certainly feel confident about your ability to win one more and get to the postseason. So they've flipped the script on this season in the last month. I think part of that's just the team getting better every week, and it's also the schedule easing up from having played BYU, Iowa State, and Colorado, 3 of arguably the best teams in the league, all in the very front of the schedule, to give them an 0-3 hole. And they should have beat Colorado, as we all know. So I think that this team's just progressing and getting better and finding its identity and learning how to win close games, and that was the biggest close game win they've had in a really, really long time.
It was the fans stayed locked in. There was a time, I don't know when, maybe third quarter, maybe even the first half at one point where I thought, man, they need something to happen. Third quarter when Sawyer Robertson, who's on a great roll, hit Monterey Baldwin for a pass. It would have been short of a first down. He slid around a couple of defenders and picked up a lot of yards. And it kind of they were teetering on getting a little bit bored or not engaged. And so they were, and they win. Also, Houston, I mentioned, knocking K-State out of maybe any type of college football playoff. They're going to have to win and get to the Big 12 championship and win that too. Mike Gundy, after the loss.
I got to talk about it. I mean, that's a massive win for Willie Fritz.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's I got to say something. Sorry. Yeah. That was a massive win for Willie Fritz. I mean, this Houston team's just found ways to win games and doing so mostly by terrific defense and a little play here and there on offense. And on Saturday night, that was Zion Chris with the big run there towards the end of the game, but going 11 for 11 passing and just doing enough offensively. Even Donovan Smith getting there in short, tough yardage types of situations, using his big body in a wise way. They scraped enough together in that regard to do what they needed to do offensively. That defense is terrific.
Yep.
It shut K-State's ass down in the run game, which not many teams are capable of doing, and they made plays late, and that's one, if you're Kansas State, it's just an ugly game. There's no chance that you thought that was any type of an upset potential, and yet Houston did it again. I mean, almost did it to Oklahoma earlier in the year, and now they've won, 3 Big 12 games at this point, which there's no way anybody would have predicted that, even the biggest Willie Fritz loyalists.
Yeah, 3-6 overall with a win here or there and maybe an upset, but now they've won those pretty
4
consistently.
and 5.
Yeah.
They got a chance to go to a bowl game.
Yeah.
I know it's crazy, but they do. So that was a massive win. And for K-State, that, you can still technically win the Big 12, but your at-large chances are out the roof entirely as far as the college football playoff goes. Like, your only path to the playoff now is to go win the Big 12, and you're going to need help to do that. So that was a really bad loss, but give Houston a lot of credit.
By the way, rushing yardage for K-State, 89 yards on 34 carries. Avery Johnson did not protect the football, including a pick at the end of the game that sealed the win for Houston. Oklahoma State has not won a Big 12 game. I told you about the stat. The only time that Mike Gundy has ever had a losing season was his first year when he took over from Les Miles. From after the game, Gundy, we need to do a better job of coaching. In my opinion, I'm not so sure I agreed with our schemes. I put that up as like, is he trying to call out his coordinators? And I had a couple of Oklahoma State fans that told me he's really more of a CEO, and a lot of coaches are, but I thought that it depends on how you want to take that. But Oklahoma State hasn't won a damn game in the conference.
Look, I'm watching them in person 2 weeks ago now, and then watching them as I have, they're just bad. They're a bad team. They're not talented on defense, and they lost the best players that they did have on that side of the ball. Their offensive line has way underachieved, and I've seen that, there's probably 3 or 4 teams this year going into the summer thought, man, we've got like 100 starts on the offensive line. This is great. So happy to have that bag, or, however many they had combined. Like, all these guys, 4th, 5th-year seniors, been in the program for a while. They know the offense. This is going to be great. And then they come out and they can't do anything. They've got a great player in Ollie Gordon who's really done nothing. They've got, and it's because the offensive line's been bad. They didn't do anything about quarterback for one reason or the other, and that's really hurt them in the long run. By far the worst Gundy team I've ever seen, and I have no doubt that he'll figure out a way next year, but this team is they're just in a bottomless pit.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the stuff about his coordinators, I've heard him talk that way about his coordinators in like nearly every press conference, especially after losses. So I don't think that was anything unique or like eyebrow raising in any way. He typically does that. So that doesn't set off alarm bells, but certainly losing 6 straight does, and losing 3 of those games at home when Stillwater's normally like this fortress in the Big 12 along the lines of like old Morgantown or now Provo, and you go toughest places to play. For a long time, it felt like Stillwater was that way. Well, it's not now. I mean, there's nothing all that tough about this football team. He had a comment today because now they're losing, so it's anything you say is going to go under the microscope more. And he had an interview where he's talking about how basically losers are the ones sitting back and complaining about stuff like his football team losing, like people who can't pay their own bills. And I'm not making up that verbiage. That's the kind of verbiage he was using. So you can go listen to the clip for yourself and take it how you want to. I don't take things like super sensitively, like in that manner. So I was just kind of like, yeah, I understand what he's trying to say. I also understand how it's being taken like completely negatively by a lot of people. But yeah, Mike, when you lose 6 straight, people are going to bitch. People are going to have problems with it. That comes with the territory, multimillionaire head coach. But I feel like he's in such a cush position that this is just water off his back, like it's, all right, well, it is what it is. We just won't make a bowl game, and we'll just go into next year, and his job's not in danger, and it's just football coaching. And, to him, it's not what it is to Wet Blanket or to any of the other Oklahoma State fans out there who are taking this way worse than him. But, yeah, they're bad. They got their asses kicked by Arizona State.
They got scatterbooed, right, Paul?
Yeah, scatterbooed or scataboomed.
Yeah, well, he's hurt now, so we'll see what his status is for this week, according to Kenny Dillingham. He's on the – we'll see. So he's banged up coming out of that, but he was Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week worthy, and he got that honor today, and he was amazing with 100-plus yards on the ground and in the air. Bunch of score. Like he was great, and he flashed and was certainly a guy that I was walking away going, there's a couple guys I saw on Saturday night that I'm putting first team all Big 12, and Cam Scadaboo is one of them, and Savion Williams is another. I just got to figure out where to put Savion Williams because he's kind of
where you put him under the position of beast.
Utility or something, but no, Scadaboo's awesome, and Oklahoma State right now is not, and I'm very interested in what moves are made. I know play caller and things like that will be at the top of the list, so we'll see what they do. Certainly they're going to have a change at quarterback. Ollie Gordon will be gone to the NFL, so they're going to be in revamp mode, but this is a bad year, and they can still technically go to a bowl game, but it would mean beating TCU on the road, beating Tech at home, and then going and beating Colorado on the road. So the odds of that are pretty slim to none.
That's just like when the talk was of if Baylor was ever going to get bowl eligible, just win a game first. They got to win a game. By the way, BU Patrick Scadaboo, Player of the Week over Washington. Yep, he had over 100 yards, both rushing and receiving. Washington was the offensive newcomer of the week in the Big 12.
Yeah, and with that, I think Baylor's got, I don't know, I guess they haven't had a defensive newcomer maybe, I don't know, but I think they might have got the main sweep of special teams, offense, defense. Yeah. Washington still got honored. He just got the newcomer, but you can kind of understand it when you see Scadaboo's numbers. Everybody got a little bit of the pie. He just didn't get that main offensive player of the week, but Scadaboo had a pretty deserving game. So.
We have Ari Tempkin at 340, so let's get to a few more of these stories today. This is from Dusty Lair on Twitter to me. I believe this might have been either late Saturday night or sometime on Sunday. This is, by the way, the graphics that Paul put together for a lot of the topics and tweets are beautiful. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
I love the show. Mondays, you guys go over the top 25. We've done that. SEC is 8, 26th and 27th as well. You three often comment about how high SC teams get ranked, but curious, who's the team you all think should be ahead of these 10 SEC teams that keeps rotating spots? I don't know of anybody else in the Big 12 that should be. Well, first of all, they got BYU, Iowa State, Kansas State, and also Colorado are 4 ranked in the top 25. I don't know how many of them should be ahead of those first 3 or 4 that are in the top 25, but Paul, Craig, whose team, Big 12, should be ahead of any of those 10? Well, 4 of them are in the from the SEC that keep rotating spots. I thought Missouri was a fraud after A&M had beaten them and maybe before A&M had smoked them.
They're out now. So
I was surprised South Carolina wasn't 12th this week. I really was. And they, by the way, beat A&M up in that particular game.
Well, you make a very good point because the way the season has gone, I mean, the teams that would have arguments to do that, like a lot of them lost this past week. I mean, you're looking at it's kind of hard to say because who should be ahead of these 10 teams? Well, the 10 teams vary, right? Like, I'm not saying that people should be above Georgia or in front of, Texas. But I do think when you're rotating Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Kentucky, like all those teams have had a little taste and you're kind of rotating them on the back end, that's where I've mostly taken issue to where it's like it never drops off. Like every time a team drops out, a team replaces them. And what's the example this week? Vanderbilt did it, right? Yep. So that's more or less what I get is like the total number of teams and how you always have the benefit of this argument of we've got this many teams and we played this many teams, and because it never changes. It's always 7 or 8, no matter who loses and who wins, because team drops, team jumps in. But you make a very valid point, and this year is the hardest year to put up a good argument of who should be above because all of the other peripheral teams out there from across the leagues, on that back end at least, K-State goes and loses the way that they did on Saturday, so there's not really a great argument to be had. I do feel like it's kind of it's self-contained to where you never drop to 5 ranked teams.
How long have I been saying it's a bubble? Now, hold on one thing. Nobody that's not ranked in the Big 12 should be.
No.
Nobody. There's no argument. Texas Tech, Arizona State, nobody that is in the Big 12 should be ranked inside the top 25. Maybe they'll get there, but none of them right now deserve to be a part of that list.
But I would argue that maybe a BYU should be higher. Sure. And so if that means they jumped over at Tennessee or something, I know people, hey, beat Alabama. I'm not going to argue with you about it. I'm just saying that there are spots where you go, why is this team just hovering and not moving but one spot over the last month, whereas there's others just jumping around at 7 spots and so I think it's just a matter of, like, when's BYU going to get that respect and put in closer to the top 5 as an 8-0 team who's beat SMU at SMU, who beat the dog mess out of Kansas State? Like, they're getting no love.
They are with some of the computers, and that might affect tomorrow.
Right.
Vanderbilt has beaten Alabama.
Yeah.
Beaten Kentucky, which is a team that's this year is going to end up around that 500. Lost to Texas by just 3. But they lost to Georgia State. Yeah. Like that game doesn't count. And so the narrative, and it's not just the SEC, but the name you hear about, well, yeah, they beat somebody. The losses should count too. And they also lost to Missouri, who is was very highly overmodulated and ranked in the top 25.
I'll tell you the only, if you want to take a Big 12 team and put them over some other ones, look, Iowa State just took their first loss. It was by a point. Everybody's got a loss. They took a loss to Texas Tech, who's 6-3. Not unlike Alabama losing to, say, South Carolina. That's a very similar loss to me. So why are they 6 spots behind Alabama when they've played really well all year long? I think they should be.
They dropped 6 spots.
Why does Ole Miss jump over Iowa State with 2 losses? Those are the types of things.
Those are the things that happen.
Yeah, those are the types of things you start saying, we got this many of the top 15. You're like, so Iowa State just lost their first game. Ole Miss has already lost twice. And they are back over Iowa State already. That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about more or less.
Not only that, Greg, but 14, 15, and 16 are also LSU, A&M, and Ole Miss, yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff that we're getting at. And then, I use the example at the very beginning. Missouri finally falls out, finally, and then here comes Vanderbilt again. And it's just kind of – it's hilarious how that sort of works where you never waver and having 7-8 teams at all times. But, yeah, you have a very valid point. There's not a great argument from a lot of the rest of the country right now because a lot of people are beating up on each other.
In the AP, the number 26 and 27 are in Missouri and South Carolina. I'm not joking. I thought South Carolina would jump up with the win because they dominated A&M, who was the hot flavor last week. All right, so there we are with that. One note, we will get to – let's do this. We'll put the Ashton Jeanty later, okay, Garrett? Let's get to the 2 injuries. Florida quarterback DJ Lagway, in their game, they were giving Georgia everything they had. He went out. There were thoughts that he might be out for an extended period of time. Now it appears as if he's good to go against Texas in what should be a fun game. Texas a heavy favorite down in Austin. He gives them and may have saved Billy Napier's job.
We'll see. They've got Texas, Ole Miss, and LSU down the stretch. I don't know if it's in that exact order, but those are the 3 teams they have. They're in Austin this week in a game that will make me have to shower just for thinking about it. But I'm going to Gulf Shores, Alabama. My friends are going to be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Texas and Florida are playing this weekend." So I think that Billy Napier has at least kept his head above water so far at 4-4. He's saying DJ Lagway is going to play. It's a hamstring injury. Those things don't just heal quickly. Also, here's what I worry about. DJ Lagway could save Billy Napier's job, so Billy Napier might try to push him out there faster because the kids are always going to want to play. But what will also hurt your job is if the best player you've had in a long time tears his freaking hamstring because you pushed him out there faster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they don't have him. Their chances just plummet. You're going to a young quarterback in Aiden Warner who had some struggles the other night in replacing Lagway. So, yeah, don't love Florida's odds this weekend if no DJ Lagway. But I know there's probably some gamesmanship involved here. Hopefully he does have a great chance to play and is able to get cleared and be a part of it. But even then, I still don't know how much of a difference he really makes versus Texas, honestly. So – this Texas schedule, honestly, has been kind of disappointing.
Texas is up to 21.5-point favorite in some of the
games. So it's what does it matter, really? But, he is a better player. He's the best option they have. So you'd like to, like I said last week, and this is always my feeling on any injuries, I want the best to play the best. And I don't like it when the best teams are playing a lesser version of, what should be a much better team. So you'd love to have Lagway healthy, but I was just saying about Texas, it just feels like that schedule doesn't have the dynamite I felt like it would have. It did with Georgia, but you get this Florida game and the quarterback's hurt and just I don't know. I just feel like there's some explosion missing here because of injuries and just the way.
But the Vanderbilt game thought to be a ho-hum.
Yeah, that worked out better.
Turned out to be.
But this Florida game doesn't turn out to be nearly as big of a deal as you thought. Although it'll be cool to see these 2 teams play. But, yeah, I hope Lagway can get healthy somehow. I still think Texas wins this going away.
They're 3 touchdown favorites, and they've had an off week, too, to kind of maybe take a deep breath and correct a few things and get healthy themselves. Le'Veon Moss, hell of a player. A&M was on top of the college football, at least the SEC standings after beating LSU. Le'Veon Moss against South Carolina. He is the ever-ready battery or whatever you call Energizer battery. Mm-hmm. He is now – after a thought or two from Elko that it may not be as bad as they think, Carter Corrals, with this story, out for the year with A&M coming off the loss to South Carolina. So there we are with those players and those injuries.
Yeah, that's a bummer for A&M. And look, they're already down Ruben Owens. This means Amari Daniels has to step up. We'll see more from E.J. Smith, I would think, because he's going to have to do – I mean, he's been out there in spots because he's a good pass blocker, but they might have to give him the ball more. I wouldn't be surprised to see them get creative with Terry Bussey as well in this regard, maybe giving him the ball.
Respectfully, E.J. Smith's not going to provide much in terms of actual numbers whatsoever.
You're going to see more of him out there, though. Because,
but you're not going to notice it much unless you're just watching blocking and stuff, because he's not a numbers guy. He's not a producer like Le'Veon Moss. So that's a big loss for A&M. There's no sugarcoating. That's a huge loss for them. And a really tough break and a tough loss this past weekend that I don't know how much you really saw it coming. But that was a bitter pill to swallow for Mike Elko and company, as South Carolina just kind of put it on them. But yeah, that's a double whammy, because you've got you got A&M coming up. Here comes this injury to Le'Veon Moss, one of their best players. But regardless, that's tough for A&M, and he had a great year going, and he was on our Earl Award list 2 or 3 times already, and so I hope he gets healthy soon.
All right. When we come back, Ari Tempkin will get his feedback on the mess, because the Big 12 crazy may have just kept them from having more than one team in the college football playoff. It is at least a part of the discussion and conversation. Taj Brooks at 425 and Phil Bennett. Many things to get to with him at just after 5. And the Big 12 Bowls Beat pod will follow at in between those two guests at 445. Great job with the graphics, Paul, Garrett Ross, and Emery Winter running the mothership. Thank you, those of you who are a part of it. If you haven't, please hit the like and subscribe button. We appreciate your loyalty. I'm David Smoak. This is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. I was driving around listening to a station out of Dallas over the weekend, and they were doing like a low T commercial. Somebody was doing an endorsement. Same thing. Exact, almost same verbiage, and the reason why you would check to see what your testosterone level is. You're not as energetic. You're lethargic, in fact. You feel like, there's things like that happen no matter your testosterone, but you just feel like that much more consistently. Your sex drive is not the same. You might deal with ED. Those are some of the main symptoms of low testosterone, but there are others. Dr. Kent Petty at pettycliniclowt.com can help you out. Contact him on their website, Petty Clinic Low T. Tell him you're having some of those symptoms, and you'd like to know whether it's you, 1 out of every 3 or 4 men with symptomatic issues. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Miss our best price deals during the Black Friday sales event at Allen Samuels. This month, save big on the truck you've been looking for, like the new Rams. Shop our great selection of inventory in store or online today at Allen Samuels in Waco.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
Pizza party feeling stale? But wait, there's Marco's! Refresh the routine with Marco's new Margarita Magnifico. Fresh mozzarella, sliced Roma tomatoes, finished with a bright basil drizzle. Try Margarita Pizza the Marco's way for just $10.99.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
This is Waco, and this is Boozer's Jewelers. When locals want luxurious jewelry and at a competitive price, they come here. This is Brad Boozer. He is the owner of Boozer's Jewelers. Boozer's is the premier wedding ring store. They specialize in loose diamonds and wedding rings. At Boozer's, they have 7 jewelry counters dedicated to wedding rings and diamonds only. They also specialize in heirloom jewelry, custom jewelry, watches, and much, much more. So what are you waiting for? Stop on in today and discover why the locals trust Boozer's for their jewelry.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Ari Tempkin, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn, joins us. Paul, Catalina, Craig, and David Smoak. Ari, hey, man, how you doing? Like it? Good to see you.
Yeah, what's going on, guys? Hopefully the weather's not too shabby down south in Waco, because it's pretty bad here.
Is it really? It's very, very, very steamy, muggy.
Yeah.
But did the Big 12 butcher itself over the weekend?
I mean, sure. After week 10, yes, absolutely. That's the takeaway. I think, though, if you watch what happened around the country, we're seeing a lot of that. I mean, at this point in time, it's hard to believe, but there's only 3 SEC teams in the top 10. And we know how hard the AP top 25 likes to work towards getting SEC teams in the top 10, but they continue to kind of eat themselves in a sense. Clemson lost again this weekend. Are they out of the playoff picture now? Pitt loses. So now SMU firmly in kind of the driver's seat from an ACC perspective. So, I mean, yeah, I think this was the week leading up to this weekend where we saw really some momentum building from multiple bid Big 12. And yeah, I mean, the Kansas State loss to Houston is devastating. I think the Texas Tech victory over Iowa State is probably less devastating for that. But look, with the one thing we know is buckle up, because at this point, chalk hasn't gone that way. And even the teams that you expect to continue to win, I mean, A&M falls, they drop out of the top 10. So, you only have 3 SEC teams in the top 10, which again, go back in years past, look after week 10, how many SEC teams are in the top 10 usually. And it's not like the Big Ten is as good as it may seem with 4 of the top 10 teams. So, I mean, you've got 4 Big Ten, 3 SEC, 1 ACC, 1 Big 12, 1 independent. So I think that says a lot about where everybody is at this point in time in terms of the playoff picture.
Ari, Iowa State takes that loss. Kansas State takes a loss. Kansas State now has to win, and has to win Farmageddon to make sure that they're in the game. Has your mind changed about Iowa State at all after stumbling against a Texas Tech team that was stumbling themselves going into that game?
Maybe not necessarily about Iowa State, Paul, but it's sort of weird, the trend that we've seen with Big 12 teams not being able to come up with stops in those final possessions. And I mean, we've seen it in multiple games this year. I mean, my God, my Jayhawks have done it seemingly every week. But I mean, when you get Texas Tech with the football, Iowa State with the lead, in a minute or whatever was left, you're thinking Iowa State's going to get the stop here. Because we've seen John Haycock defenses do a lot less. So I think what I'm surprised about is just the amount of Big 12 defenses rather Big 12 offenses that are besting Big 12 defenses down the stretch. When you need to get that stop on demand, it feels like teams are not getting them. And so, yeah, I mean, it's Texas Tech. We've seen Baylor be on both sides of it. So, yeah, it's a bizarre, for me, kind of turn of events to where we've seen really good defenses in this conference. And I think heading into this season, I expected the Big 12 defenses to be really, really good. And yet, like, I think it's 22 of the 44 Big 12 games. So literally half of the Big 12 games have been decided by a touchdown or less. And then 12 of those 22 were decided in the final possession. And so I think a lot of that has to do with Big 12 defenses at this point in time. They're just not getting the stops that we've expected them to get. And even an Iowa State defense. Now, look, they've been decimated by injuries along their linebacking core. They're starting 2 true freshmen and a walk-on who's a redshirt freshman, and Rylan Barnes, who, by the way, may be their best defensive player right now. So they're going to start to, I think, get some of their linebackers back and healthy. Maybe that'll make a difference. But we've just kind of come to see this Iowa State defense. It hasn't mattered what they haven't had, and they've been able to hold up. But yet in this game, they didn't, especially in that final possession.
Kind of a two-part thing here on Texas Tech, Ari. Let's talk about, I'd like your opinions on the helmet communications issue from last week that Texas Tech made public and is standing by and is obviously ticked off about. You see the wife of the athletic director sounding off and I mean, so on and so forth. But for them, in the midst of that, to not turn around and then lose to Iowa State, but to go get a win was just so massive for that reason, for just their season trajectory and getting bowl eligible, getting a big win. So kind of on the one hand, just the on the field, how big was that for Texas Tech? And then the off the field, what did you make of that storyline and their issues last week?
Yeah, it's funny, right? We had the hand signals forever. And finally, we got rid of those because, well, I mean, we've got the technology in order to go far beyond the hand signals and the signs on the sideline and everything else. And it took literally not even a full season before we already had issues with this new helmet communication, which was the replacement for the system that was in place forever that seemed to never fail with the exception of last year, right? So it's one of those things where, no matter what the technology is, teams, programs are going to look to exploit it. Now, with that being said, it doesn't seem like that's what happened here. It seems like, the unencrypted audio that was being sent may have been potentially compromised if there were others involved that knew what they were doing and could have done it. Now, I know that Texas Tech sort of did their own independent investigation and found, they could easily, I guess, hack into the system or whatever, but I think it's been well documented, like being able to decipher the signals, hearing, again, just one aspect of the conversation, because you're not going to have a full aspect of all of the what's being said down the line, then to decipher what's being said, and then to project it onto the field to get it to the right people. It sounds like you're just better off playing defense straight up against that team, and figuring out what they're trying to do to you, as opposed to, trying to figure out how to steal signs. So, yeah, it definitely felt like sour grapes for a team that had lost 2 straight. And, did it translate on the field? What a bizarre game. Iowa State really dominated that game offensively. When you look at the yards, you look at what they were able to do. The biggest difference was the penalties for Iowa State and then the turnovers. Iowa State normally feasts on teams that turn the football over. Baron Morton had 2 interceptions. He had a third that was called back for a penalty. Again, it was probably a closely contested game, and I think some of those penalties were bad calls, but it went both ways the entire football game. So, and Iowa State just didn't play well enough in order to overcome them. And I think similarly, like Kansas State, like they just couldn't come up with enough stops and do enough on offense in the second half to make it. So, look, credit Texas Tech's defense for what they did in the second half against Rocco Becht, who's been one of the best, most underrated quarterbacks. And then, of course, credit Taj Brooks. Yeah, you guys mentioned you're having him on later. I mean, what a dynamic player. It's funny. We talked earlier about, like, does this put him out of the playoff picture? And it's like, it's not like these teams are losing to bad teams. I mean, Taj Brooks is one of the best running backs and has been in the country. So, like, the fact that I think he had 4 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown on that final drive. So, like, that just shows you the effectiveness of some of these other teams. I mean, Colorado, it's a really good team with a ton of talent. Texas Tech's a team that's been there. So, Baylor playing significantly better. So, this is sort of how we thought the conference would shake out. We thought maybe be a little bit more top heavy and be a little bit better at the top, but it's not at least playing out like that. And, find me another team in another conference like a Houston that could go and knock off a Kansas State. I mean, I don't think a Mississippi State and the SEC or, a Michigan State Northwestern in the Big Ten can jump up and bite one of the top teams of the Big Ten or the SEC. So I think that speaks to just the variety, the depth of this conference. But in terms of your question overall, I guess a little disappointed to see Texas Tech still kind of respond despite the Big Ten investigating, saying that nothing was compromised. And then still, all they basically said was it's not as throwaway it's not as much of a throwaway as we're expecting it to be. Basically, what Texas Tech is saying is we're not accusing anybody of doing anything, but we were able to hack into our own system. So it's like, okay, maybe the system was somewhat compromised, but again, like the idea that you can then decipher what's being said and then relay that onto the field in real time seems kind of absurd at best.
Colorado sits back, relaxes, and enjoys the weekend, and everything in front of them, the door opens for them. They have to win, but can you believe this? I think it's great. I don't know what they're going to do. I think it's great. They kind of stopped the talk. There's still kind of some glitz and glamour. They just started playing football and winning games, and here they are. It's right there in front of them.
Yeah, and look, this is their final hurdle when you look at the rest of their 4 games they've got, because it's Utah the following week, then at Kansas, and then Oklahoma State to close out the season. And I have no sense of Oklahoma State being able to win a conference game. They are as bad as I've ever seen. And, they went 1-7 in Mike Gundy's first year. They went 3-6 as one of their worst conference record in the Gundy era. But beyond that, they've never had more than 6 or more losses in the Big 12, and they're 0-6 here with, nothing resembling a team that looks like they can put together a win in these final 3 games of the season for them. So, we're in uncharted water for Oklahoma State. So, yeah, the big game for them is this week against Texas Tech in Lubbock, and Texas Tech is playing good football. If they're feeling really good about themselves after having those 2 straight losses and then handing Iowa State their first loss of the season. So we'll see what happens this week. But look, there's a long history here between Deion and Joey McGuire. Joey actually coached Deion's oldest son in high school. And obviously with Joey's familiarity with, the Dallas landscape, with Deion, being in the Dallas area, there's very much a familiarity between these 2 coaches. So I think that's really interesting. And yeah, Smokey, to your point, like, this is great for the Big 12. There's not a ton of drama. There's not a ton of noise around Colorado. They're just quietly doing this. And look, suddenly now you've got some Heisman talk around Travis Hunter where, he or Jeanty or maybe even Cameron Scadaboo, who eclipsed 1,000 yards in 8 games this past week, are all part of that discussion. So, all good stuff for the Big 12. Now, look, they were the big winner, and I think the talking point coming out of this week is how much Colorado was the big winner. But remember, like, weird things happen. So even as I look at their schedule and say, like, Texas Tech's the one slip-up opportunity they have, like, who knows what's going to happen with Utah? Who knows what happens at Kansas? Like, this is what happens at the end of the year. Bad teams can bite good teams, especially teams that know they need to win to continue playing and to get to a conference championship game. So, they've got to make sure that they're not overlooking anybody in the rest of their schedule. Obviously, Texas Tech with this game coming up this weekend, that'll be a big one. If they win that one, it comes down to their ability to get prepared to play and not overlook any opponents moving forward, because that's going to be the biggest, hurdle for them to finish the season the right way.
All right, let's play a quick game of off-season staff changes. You tell me yes or no if it'll happen for these teams. We'll start with Oklahoma State, who you just mentioned. Will they have large off-season staff changes?
Can't imagine they go winless in conference or 1 win in conference and the worst year for Mike Gundy since his first season 20 years ago and not have some change. They've been calling for Casey Dunn's head for many, many years, but he's been there for many, many years. So I'd find it hard to believe that Dunn would be replaced despite all of the calls for him to be replaced. Although I will say Gundy's called him out a ton this year, so maybe that says something. I don't think there's any chance Brian Nardo can survive this. He went and got Nardo as one of his specialty hires from a small school. And they've just been the worst defense in the Big 12 the last 2 years. The difference, guys, like, this is the same team as last year. The difference was they had the Doak Walker Award winner running the football for them, which opened up a lot of opportunities for Alan Bowman. And then remember, they had Colin Oliver and Nick Martin on their defense. So they gave up a ton of yards. But when you've got Colin Oliver who can engineer some splash plays on defense and turn some teams over, like, suddenly it's okay to be giving up a chunk yardage. So without Colin Oliver healthy, without the Doak Walker Award winner from last year doing what he did last year, this is what we're seeing. This is the exact same team from last year, except for the two guys on defense that are injured that made up for the issues they had on defense. So I see no way that Nardo's back. But and with Dunn, it feels like it's a long time coming. But we've also seen Gundy's kept down to Dunn for a long time here.
All right, Arizona, Kansas, and Utah.
Here's what I'll say about Arizona. It's sort of inexcusable that their offense is this bad. And so I could 100% see Brent Brennan being one and done, which sounds shocking. But I think they're very unhappy in Tucson. It doesn't help that their rivals, across the way in Tempe are having such a great season. But yeah, I mean, look, the issues that they had with Dino Babers as the offensive coordinator, then he's replaced. That was sort of a weird dynamic in your first year. So yeah, but again, you've got multiple offensive linemen. You've got multiple NFL offensive linemen along your offensive front. You've got, T-Mac, one of the best receivers in college football, and a quarterback that had come off a fantastic season. Like, there's no excuse for this offense to be this dreadful. It's really unbelievable how bad their offense is. And then what were the other ones you gave me?
Utah and Kansas.
Utah's interesting because, Whittingham has named his coach and replacement. So, is this the perfect opportunity for him to step away, or is it the worst time to step away because you're handing the keys over when things look really, really dire? You can make the case for both of them. Whittingham said years ago that he wouldn't coach past 65. He's going to be 65 in next year in this offseason. He's going to turn 65. So, I would have said when the season started, there's no way that this will be Whittingham's final season, but I could start to see it, especially again, with this being the second time they've named Morgan Scalley their coach in waiting. As for Kansas, I mean, I'd be shocked to see any changes there. Maybe Jeff Grimes would be the big one. I could definitely see that one, but I don't see a change at coach. I don't see a change at defensive coordinator. And look, maybe it's the perfect time to be replacing Jeff Grimes because you're going to be breaking in kind of an entirely new offense next year because they've had so much carryover at quarterback, at wide receiver, even at offensive line the last few years. So I could definitely see Grimes being let go.
I know they're not in contention for the top of the league now, but how about that Baylor TCU finish and just the game itself, the back and forth? Ari, obviously a huge win for Dave Aranda and a pretty brutal loss for Sonny Dykes. But your thoughts on that latest chapter in the rivalry on Saturday night?
Yeah, and I really enjoyed listening to your post-game audio as well, Craig. I caught that and the Baylor, or the Second 365 podcast network.
Thanks, man.
And so I enjoyed what you were talking about there.
Appreciate
and I think, like, for me, it's the call by Aranda to go for it on fourth down there.
No kidding. Yeah.
I mean, that could really backfire in a huge way. And now all of a sudden Aranda is probably out of a job. I mean, let's just play that out. If they don't get that, now TCU's in position to hit a few plays. And now they're kicking a game-winning field goal potentially. So I think going for it, the pass by Sawyer Robertson, and not only that, but I think the Bryson Washington run after that is very underrated because, like, for me, this game came down to two things. It's that fourth down play by Sawyer and Trigg, and then the running by Bryson Washington. And this is 2 straight weeks now. We've seen, Dawson Pendergrass explode last week, and now it's Bryson Washington this week. And it's funny because coming into the year, we all thought, like last year, Richard Reese would be the guy. And yet, once again, it's been other guys that have been the guys for this rushing attack. The offensive line has dramatically improved over the course of the season. And yeah, I mean, it's a big deal for Baylor to win 3 straight games. It's a big deal for Baylor to win this game, Craig, like you were talking about on the postgame show. So huge win for Dave Aranda, huge win for this program. And, you're starting to see this defense play more consistently. I think sort of up and down week after week with Aranda taking over. It's playing way more consistently. And then that fourth down call, I mean, the cojones on Aranda to make that call and then for Robertson to complete the pass. That in many ways, if this, whatever the season ends up at, and look, Baylor now in really good position to potentially win out here. I know we talked about, expectations, and you don't want to look too far down the road at these games because upsets happen this time of year. But, if Baylor wins out here, we're going to look at that call in this game and the play by Robertson, that really saved this season and saved Aranda's job at Baylor.
Yeah, because if they don't make it, TCU throws a couple of 12-yard outs and they kick the field goal like they did a couple of years ago. Ari, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Great to have you on Mondays to kind of look back and also look ahead to the weekend.
You guys are the best. Take care. And I get late night tonight with Gonzaga and Baylor at 10:30 Central.
God, I might go to sleep.
There's no way. Like Ari, I'm not going to pretend like I can stay up.
Yeah,
and watch
you
that
are.
game.
We're going to go to bed early.
I'm not
going to
set
the alarm.
Paul's going to be here for a live post game after.
Yeah, no, I'd love to
One of the
watch
best
it.
games. It's one of the best games of the week. Come on,
I know.
We got to get it.
Don't put it at 10. Gosh damn 30.
I'll tell you this.
That's what I'll say.
If Kansas was playing Gonzaga at 10:30, you would be forced to stay up.
Yeah, I would be.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it,
guys.
Ari. By the way, on what he said about Craig, your rapid reactions, Bobby B., Craig's Rapid Reaction podcast, it's always the first go-to during the postgame, always excellent. Thank you very much for that. And then he writes a good, the bad, and the ugly the following day like he did in the forums. Appreciate those of you who jumped on with us in the postgame. After the win, Texas Tech and Baylor, Baylor and TCU at McLean Stadium.
That was an incredible night. I mean, we hadn't had a night like that around here in a really long time. I think even longer than the 2 years.
3. I said 3.
What do you mean 3?
That kind of night at McLean Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
2021 against Oklahoma.
Is it normal when you get older to lose track of years and 2
no.
becomes 3 and 3 becomes 2 and all that? I don't even know where I am on the timeline anymore.
Older.
I'm just trying to make it every day. But, that was the biggest win since Oklahoma. But I think it was a bigger win than that Oklahoma game just from the standpoint of what do you had in terms of a rivalry and just all of the lead up to these last 2-3 years of the up and down and mostly down nature of Aranda's tenure since 2021. I mean, that was a huge game that led you to the Big 12 title in so many ways and all of that. And beating Oklahoma was always a big deal. But just point being, this program is so starved for a victory. And to get that one on Saturday night, it just, it was a big deal. It was a really big deal.
It was a big deal. And I had no problem with the students getting on the field. It was a feel good. Like I said, first time they could feel something like that. Regardless of TCU's record, it's a rivalry game. Some schools don't do it. They hadn't seen that. They did it. I had no problem with it. All right, when we come back, we will hear in a moment from Taj Brooks and also look at the Bowlesby pod, which is UCF Houston, BYU and Cincinnati. We'll have that and more. A couple of other college football notes. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club, man, what a weekend they had. Oh, my Lord. Mike Mosel and his staff were busy as they could possibly be. And now, this week, on Wednesday, they're going to have coffee flights, sweet bites, and trivia. An evening of coffee flights, sweet bites, and special Harry Potter-themed trivia, which means I wouldn't be able to answer a single question. And I don't drink coffee. But if you do, that's this Wednesday at 5:30. The price is $20 per person. The New England Picnic, the patio party of the year. Join Chef Lee for interactive dining experience Thursday night, 6:30 at the Baylor Club, $45 per person. I had somebody that I was asking about the food at the Baylor Club. And they say that they have changed the menu a little bit. There's still some of the great things they do, whether it's a buffet or you order from the menu or you're just going to have a drink and relax a little bit. That's what they do, and they do it really, really well. You can see inside McLean Stadium. You can enjoy the views on I-35 looking at the Foster Pavilion, and even have special events there, too, when you need. It's the Baylor Club. Mike Mosel, general manager, off I-35 inside McLean Stadium in Waco.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Texas Tech running back Taj Brooks in a moment after the huge win on the road in Ames against Iowa State. Second time in 3 years that, as Joey McGuire, the head coach, that Tech has clinched a bowl game in Ames. Did it his first year and also did it this past weekend. Ashton Jeanty, touchdowns he scored in 2024. Tied with Michigan and Utah as a team. Then the rest of the schools on this list have not scored as many touchdowns as a team as Ashton Jeanty has scored by himself.
Yep.
And he had a boring 143 yards and a touchdown or two and 2 catches, 31 ever yards like that. Because he's so dynamic, we look for that explosive game. He has been explosive pretty much week in and week out.
Do you know what's hilarious about this last game was San Diego State sold their soul to stop him, and Madsen ripped him a new one.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. 300 yards passing, multiple touchdowns.
Yeah,
and they're number 12 in the country and looking good doing it.
Yeah, he has more touchdowns. By the way, 2 of our teams are on this list. Oklahoma and Florida State both have less touchdowns than Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah, I mean, I can believe it based on what I've seen from
He
Oklahoma
will pass
and Florida
Nebraska
State.
since they're not on the list. He will at any time.
I have to ask, what is the Jeanty? Like this extra French kind of pronunciation.
Because that's what he told me he wanted me to call him.
It's fancy. No, Smokey's a fancy man.
He's
a very fancy man.
What did I say? Ashton Jeanty.
No, you say Jeanty.
Well, it's because that's what he asked me to.
And it's been going on for weeks now, and I've just been meaning to say something, but I just wondered if
I'm going to get him on again, and we'll discuss that with him.
No, you make it a little fancier than I've heard it anywhere else.
Well,
so I've just been wondering.
He
but
deserves
Jeanty. Jeanty. It's Stephon Arkell is what that sounds like.
Who the hell is Stephon Arkell? Who?
Stephen Urkel.
Oh,
him?
What the hell?
Stephon Arkell. That's what it reminds me
he
of.
He invented some kind of thing that made him cool.
It's Joey McGuire.
Yeah.
No, I had to finally ask that question. It's been on my mind for a while now. But Ashton Jeanty's a great player, and I don't like his Heisman hopes right now, guys. I think people are looking for a reason to kind of – he doesn't play anybody. He has to get 203 touchdowns every time to, keep pace.
He's been taken out of games how many times it have?
Oh, I'm not going to argue against him.
But in 190 against
the
Oregon.
narrative that I see building is more of Travis Hunter and someone like that as opposed to
Cam Ward as well.
As opposed to an Ashton Jeanty. So I think he'll be in New York. I don't know what his odds are of winning it, but if he keeps doing what he's doing, he will definitely be there, and he will have a great shot at potentially pulling off one of the most most unexpected Heisman Trophy winners we've seen in a really long time.
Evan Abrams has this tweet about Indiana unbeaten, and people are picking at their schedule too. My question is this. Is it Indiana's fault the Big Ten algorithm gave them the schedule they have?
Is it Indiana's fault that the Big Ten has really been overrated and not that great for years and years and years, and there's nothing they could do about it, and then they just got better, and they're playing the Big Ten?
So I guess they had to run the table
Big
against
Ten team
yeah,
plays.
What they want them to play Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, and I think that they would be able to handle. There would be a hell of they score a bunch of points. Here's a note from Evan: they're favored against Michigan, double-digit favorite. They have not been favored in any way to beat Michigan in any game since 1968, and they're double-digit favorites now to beat Michigan this weekend.
Yeah, and I think that they will beat Michigan this weekend. That wouldn't be shocking at all. They're playing really good football, and no, it's not their fault that Michigan State's just a kind of a rudderless program at the moment, and that Washington is completely bare bones compared to the just superhero-laden roster they had last year, getting to the national championship game, and it's not their fault. Nebraska's an eternal disappointment, and it's not their, like none of those things are their fault. I do think that when you grow these leagues, though, you have a lot of other teams that can make your schedule really not that big. Like, hey, we added USC and blah, 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 but then it's like, yeah, but you're just playing Purdue and Northwestern and, all those teams more. You're not even playing better teams necessarily. So I don't know. I guess we'll take more time to really know for sure on whether schedules have actually gotten watered down in some ways versus being more difficult.
I think there was a time, and there's a couple of 2 or 3 weekends where we were like, man, this is awesome. And there's going to be another weekend, November the 16th weekend is going to be that way. But I do think, for example, so let's say Indiana had USC on their schedule. Let's say they had somebody else who moved on their schedule. And so then that doesn't count. It's a name, but, it's not their fault. Now, it's not their fault who they have to play in the conference. That's something that's spit out by the Big Ten. Speaking of which.
Yeah, they'll be fine, though. They just keep winning, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
The Ohio State, they can't overlook Michigan.
If they run the table and get to the Big Ten championship game and lose, I still think because of the conference they're in, they will still be able.
Yeah, they're
now,
fine.
Oregon and Ohio State can still have something to say about that.
The people bitching about Indiana are just bitching about their placement in the playoff standings tomorrow night. We'll hear all of the being and moaning that comes with that from all parties all over the country, but Indiana's got nothing to worry about. They just keep doing their thing. They'll be in the playoff, and even if that means they lose the Big Ten championship game, or I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. You lose to Ohio State, then you lose the Big Ten championship game. I still think you're probably in, but we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. They got to beat Michigan, but it's a great story.
Well, frauds. Garrett, do you have it? Frauds. I put this one together. I didn't think much through it, but to me it was pretty easy. Nebraska's a fraud. USC, fraud. A&M, because of who they were, because of what happened. I'm not saying losing to South Carolina makes you a fraud, but they were blown out in that game. Kansas State, with what they have in front of them, lost, fraud. And the Cyclones at home to lose to a team that was kind of in a free fall, to me, that doesn't mean they're not good, but to me that means they're fraudulent because of at least coming off last week. Nebraska is now 1-30 in games where they had a final possession tied or trailing by one score, 1-30. Matt Rule is now 0-7 in bowl clinching opportunities.
Yeah.
Let's not get into his top 25 record and things like that.
No, it makes James Franklin look good.
Yeah,
it does.
But I would, to go back to the top 5 frauds for a second, I would say, look, Nebraska, their goal was to get to 6 or 7 wins. They can still do that. If they don't, then they get to stay on this list. USC, total fraud. A&M just reverted back to who they were, and we'll see how they do in the next 3 weeks. Kansas State, really disappointing to be on the outside looking in right now, and that's the case for everybody we picked at the top of the Big 12, because now they're the ones in the best scenario of all that. Iowa State, not ready to put them in that category yet. It was a close game. They were bound to have one of those, but I would say the top 4, right?
We just got scolded because we're using the old Iowa State logo.
It popped better on the graphic, so sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay, so we have Taj Brooks coming up. Craig, wrap up the segment.
Yeah, I think I agree with Paul. I'm not ready to go there for Iowa State. My thought on Iowa State is thank you for pointing out the logo, first of all. Those are the kinds of details that we would like to know. But also, I think that was just so Iowa State to lose that game. That was my thought on Saturday, was you have this golden opportunity to go where you've never gone before and to continue making history. And the signs were there these last couple of games. The signs were there that this could be coming, sneaking by UCF at home. Like, Ames wasn't like some impenetrable castle or anything. So I think the thing that prevented you from really considering Tech beating them was just what Tech was coming in off of. And the whole talk all week was not even about this game. It was about their helmet communication complaints. And so that was totally unforeseen for me, and I think for most. I don't know that makes them fraudulent, but it did make them that's Iowa State. That's why they could still go and win the Big 12, but now it's in doubt, right? Now it's not as much in their control. Now here's Colorado who can make some noise, and that's the thing that prevents you from taking that next step as a program, as a head coach, and so on, was you just can't afford to lose a game like that, and they did, and that's what bars you from taking the next step. And so we'll see if they can overcome that, but that was a bad loss. There's no sugarcoating that.
We've already done the Florida State fraud. The top five, they're 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
No, look, they're
about to be the first team in college football history to lose 9 games. Remember the losing seasons out of the top 25. If they don't win, if they lose another game, they will be the first team in the history of college football ranked in the top 10 to end up with 9 losses or more that same season.
Look, Dave, the reason they're not on here is their fraud trial happened weeks ago.
No, yeah, they've already been convicted.
They've already been convicted of fraud.
They had white-collar fraud.
These are new accusations that still have to be adjudicated. Actually, I think the only one we can legitimately convict so far on this list would be USC.
Yeah.
The rest are now charged, and they have to crawl out.
And here's the thing with Nebraska, they're going to have more stuff coming their way because who are they going to beat? USC be fraud against fraud. I don't know. All right, David, Iowa State and K-State can still win out. No, they play each other.
Yeah.
So they can't both win out. So this was from last weekend, the fraud case, and USC, of course, might be like right below Florida State for their entire season. When we come back, Taj Brooks, Texas Tech running back on the week of, big noon kickoff, Colorado, the win against Iowa State, his game-winning touchdown and more. And this is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com with another auction coming up this weekend. Wagyu, Cowboy, Ribeye, the bone-in ribeyes. There are going to be 2 of them in one of the lots. You can go online to TexasBeefHouse.com and find the link, Bid on Beef, or go straight to Bid on Beef. They both work with each other. Also, they have what they call lots. 3 bone-in Cowboy ribeyes in one lot. There's the Wagyu ribeye bone-in. There's the Wagyu ribeye bone-out, which means boneless. Also, just keep going down the list. Lots of Wagyu ribeye bone-in ribeyes, or the ones without the bone in them. Prime rib. Hey, we're getting closer to the holidays. 1 juicy prime rib in the lot just in time for the holidays. And there's so much more to get to. Tenderloins, fillets, filet mignon, New York strips. That's coming up November the 9th. For more information, again, they're also the sponsor of our gift card college football pick'em contest, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Announcing Genco's Car Hugger Special. Right now, refinance your auto loan at Genco and get 3 months of no car payments. Plus, your loan will be automatically entered for a chance to win your next 3 car payments on us. Enjoy 5.19% for 48 months and then skip your payments until 2025. Subject to credit approval and membership eligibility. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered.
We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, waiting on Taj Brooks to enter the video link for the interview with the Texas Tech running back who scored the game-winning touchdown in their comeback win on the road against Iowa State. The college football pick'em. Paul Catalina.
Yeah. Okay. We got alerted that some people might have picked ahead because the picks are all. So let me tell you this. Here's how I did it. I went and picked 10 games a week so that in case anything ever happened and I wasn't able to do it, there would be 10 games there for you to pick. But every Monday, I go through and make sure that we pick good games and not bad ones. So I changed them each and every week. So if you've picked ahead, just make sure that you check every single week for the picks. But that being said, Bracket Cat was our winner this week. Congratulations to Bracket Cat. He was, I believe he was 8-2.
Okay, so. All right. We'll get into that in just a little bit more. But we are now joined by one hell of a football player and a great kid, young man. Taj Brooks, running back at Texas Tech, joins us. How you doing, Taj?
I'm doing good, man. Just blessed to be here. Just blessed to be on this interview podcast, man. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. Thank you to Matt Dowdy for setting this up for us. So, you're down. Iowa's grind of a game. You're down. There's less than maybe, 2 minutes to go. You got to go the length of the field. What was said, if anything, and what was the thought process in that drive that went quickly, and you were a part of 4 carries for 40 yards in the game winner?
For sure. So what our OC, Coach Kelly, he called up a great game plan, and basically we just spread them out wide, and they thought we were going to basically throw it over the top of their heads, and Barron made a great cause and just give me the ball in inside zones, and I just made it happen. And then on the last play for the touchdown, we kind of went to our gym formation, but our quarterback, it wasn't our quarterback, it was like a wildcat type of situation, and ran kind of like an outside zone scheme play that we've been practicing all week, and it worked for us. So that's kind of really to sum up the jobs. But it's really just come down just to the little detailed things that we've been working on during the week and how we can just put our best foot forward in each and every play.
Tahj, I asked Coach McGuire a couple weeks ago when we had him on the show how he would recommend tackling you. And he said, just don't do it. Do you, because it is so natural for you to hit a hole and run, but do you ever get the feeling that when somebody tries to square up on you, oh, thank you, I'm going to show you why you won't do this the next time?
Most definitely. But then you always got to have that type of just thing of just not going down by the one person. I feel like that's something I don't do usually. That's something I don't like getting tackled by one person. I love contact. I love pass blocking. It's something that Coach McGuire probably praises a lot about, besides me running the ball. You know what I mean? I love blocking for my teammates and things like that. But I make people miss, and I love when contact comes and whoever wants it I can deliver a blow as well. So.
Tahj, you guys obviously suffered a couple of tough losses, and then there was a lot of noise, I know, last week off the field and in the headlines. But I saw a little clip from the post game that the school put together about, kind of making people respect you guys, that you guys aren't getting respect. Can you kind of give me y'all's viewpoint on sort of how y'all feel viewed in the big picture and that chip on the shoulder that seems like it's pretty large in Texas Tech's football program right now?
Almost definitely. I feel like we didn't get the respect that we deserve. But that drives us, that irks our nerve, and then that makes us go harder each and every day. For me and my teammates, we see the news, we see all on the social media outlets and things like that. But we just digging within ourselves and just how we can get better, how we can go 1-0, how we can communicate across the board of attacking teams, and how we can basically go in each week and go on 1-0. And then it's just really just crazy, just surreal. Our coach preaches it every time to us. He preaches nobody respects us, and you're either gonna fall and you're not gonna get respected, or you're gonna try to do everything that's possible to get respected in this league. And I feel like that's something we've been trying to do, and we're gonna keep trying to do, and really just going to 1-0 each and every week. So,
Tahj, Joey McGuire sent me a couple of notes about you, and one of them was he is one of the best humans I have ever been around in my life. What does it mean when he says that about you?
It means a lot, especially coming from the head coach. I feel like a lot of head coaches don't say that about their players, but I love that guy, man. I do everything in my power to put this university in a successful way and trying to go 1-0, and especially me and my teammates. I respect all those guys from within the walk-ons to the guys that are on scholarship, man. And one thing about our team, we're so close. We're so close. You couldn't tell a guy if a guy was a walk-on or on scholarship guy, because that's how our bond is, and we basically love each other. We want to play hard for that, man. So,
Tahj, you guys have had some stumbles along the way, but you have picked yourself, like you said, no respect and all that. How is the chemistry within the players to where before you even get to Coach McGuire telling you, here's what you need to work on, here's what you do, that you guys kind of take care of that on your own?
Oh, definitely. I feel like from each position group, we have different goals that we set for our guys. And then especially us captains, me, Jacob Rodriguez, Baron Morton, Caleb Rogers, and Bryce Ramirez, we want to set our team to the highest ceiling as possible. We go in each week, things that we get to correct or things that we need to work on going in the week. And with that can be on the field or off the field. You know what I mean? Just to clean up the little small detail things that we always preach. Because I feel like that's what kind of won us this game this past weekend. Just clean up the little small details within alignment, assignment, knowing your job, knowing you have to strain on the backside of this play to make this play work and things like that. So it's really just to come with the communication, and then just across the whole board. You know what I mean? Just the fan base we have is incredible. So.
What's it been like to have Josh Kelly on this team as another star-type player, a big-time playmaker? I know he's got to make everybody's job easier, but just what's his addition been like this season?
Oh, it's been amazing. It's been great. That guy is he's a different type of guy. He's a game changer for sure. As well, I can harp on the other receivers in our room: Caleb Douglas, Coy Aiken, Jordan Brown. Those guys, man. Micah Hudson. Those guys are game changers, man. And whenever the ball gets in their hands, it's a different level. And I feel like this past season we can keep doing that and just spreading the ball around and really just giving our guys a chance. And I feel like we can be successful.
So you're a pro's pro, even though I know it's college, but that's one of the things I've heard about you. Every day you're prepping your body for what it needs to get healed from the weekend before, get ready for the weekend coming up, and also unreal studying film. Is that something you've always done, and when did that start? Was it back in high school or even when you got to the point in college?
No, so in high school, I used to watch a lot of film with my dad. That's what kind of started with me with the film side and just analyzing plays because high school you play on Fridays and then you have your Saturday morning film sessions. And then after that film session, I used to go watch film with my dad and my uncles just to whine on the detailed things I can clean up within my runs, or if I don't see this hole, I maybe see it again. And then with my body, I really just, when I got to college and I started getting dinged up a little more, I just took my body very seriously. One of my guys, I just seen it on Twitter. He treats his body like a Ferrari, and I feel like I do the same as well. You know what I mean? Just to harp on that. I'm always in our training facility, always in the hot and cold tubs, always in the boots, always. And then the nutrition side, we have probably one of the best nutritionists in the country, and she gives us the window of what we need to eat, what we need to put in our body, what fuels you for this practice and things like that. So I just can't just harp on that and just really just going in each week, just thinking like a pro, especially coming back this last year. I knew it was going to be my final year, but I wanted to treat this year like as if I was in the NFL.
Tahj, you when you make that decision to come back, and part of it was last year there was all this talk about running backs and they're only worth this or that. This year, I think if you look at the NFL, if you look at college football, I think you guys have turned that little falsity on its ear. Do you feel like now, given what your tape is, what teams' needs are, look, you don't need to go up the road very far from you guys to Dallas to see what happens when you don't really take a position seriously. Do you feel like you'll be better set off for this year?
For sure. Hopefully. It's crazy. That's my dad's team, man. You can't talk about them too much. My dad's a big Dallas Cowboys fan, but yeah, you know what I mean? Just coming back this this past year and just showing that I can be a true talent within my game. And then I feel like in this year's running back class is probably the year the running backs are going to be respected. You know, there's a lot of great guys in this league and in the Power Five and even across the college football world of running backs. You know, you see different type of talents, different type of body types, different type of running backs that can extend plays with their legs and that can basically do it on their own. You know, you see the guy from Arizona State, Cam Scatterboo, he's doing great things for their university. You know what I mean? The guy from UCF, Ollie Gordon, you know, he didn't have the year that he's supposed to have, but he's contributing to his team in a good way. You know what I mean? So it's just great just seeing the running backs across the board just trying to win for their universities and also just trying to just dive with that.
So you guys have gotten bowl eligible 4th straight year. That's a big accomplishment. But there's still a lot to play for beyond that. I mean, the Big 12 is still a very tight race, Tahj. And this is a big game with Colorado coming up here. We already know, like, with Dion and Shador and all the kind of the star power there. But what's it like on y'all's end to not only have a big game and big importance, but then to learn that big noon kickoff's coming? Does that add a little extra spice from a player point of view, or are you guys just sort of so zoned in that you don't pay as much attention? Kind of give us your perspective on a big game and big broadcast rolling into town.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big game. I can't wait. It's probably gonna be one of the exciting games that me and my teammates have played in since I've been here. But we're locked in on just trying to play football. You know, Coach McGuire preaches and just focus on the football. You know, focus on having a great day on Monday and then coming on practice on Tuesday and have your best Tuesday practice and then your best Wednesday practice and then going through your preparation so we can be successful on Saturday and just leading that team that way. So it's not really. I love that that fans can enjoy the kickoff and all the pregame ritual stuff, man. But we kind of focus on the football things and just trying to go 1-0 that this week.
How much was it just important of winning a game after you had the 2 losses to Baylor at home, and then, of course, the game last week, the week before, and that last-second loss to TCU, just to be able to clear what you try to do anyway, just winning a game again?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It was a great feeling. It was a great feeling in the locker room with the guys and especially my coach and the coaches. You know, we love winning so much, and we put in so much work from the summer and the winter and just really just seeing everything dwindle and just getting just being victorious. And then it's just crazy just to see where we came from and how we started, and it's just the overall seeing of the overall picture. So,
Taj Brooks, running back at Texas Tech, with us on 365 Sports after the huge win against Iowa State in Ames, Iowa.
Which running back would you like to not try and tackle other than you?
Other running back, is it college or NFL or?
Let's go college.
College, I don't know. I'm pretty competitive, but I don't know. Are we gonna go like this year, or we just any?
Let's go this year because you mentioned like Scatterboo, guys like that. Like,
I'm probably gonna say probably the guy from Arizona State.
Scatterboo, yeah.
He has a low center of gravity, and it's probably gonna be tough to tackle him.
Yeah, but I mean, you are so low to the ground, and yet you seem to be fluid when you do it. Or are you like just a bowling ball through a bunch of pins at times?
Just at times I can be, but it's just I feel like it's just my body type. You know, I've never been the skinny guy, the skinny running back that you always usually have. I always pack the punch, and you know that's been me and my persona. So
what happened to Joey McGuire's right ear?
It's crazy. Just our strength coaches our strength coaches is very highly and just got crazy in the locker room, just giving us pumped up, and just actually threw a trash can, and McGuire tried to duck it, and it actually hit his ear. But you know, coach he made it seem like it was just like another thing that happened. Like we were in the locker room just after the game, just laughing at it. He was like, "Yep, y'all can laugh. I don't care. I'm a tough guy." So it just really it blew us, and it kind of lit a fire in us.
Last thing for you, Tahj. Again, thanks for your time today. We mentioned the Big Noon kickoff. It's Colorado, and we know what they've been able to do. They've kind of gotten down to business and really have a different identity than maybe even a month ago. Definitely. What is it like to play in Lubbock with the fan base that you have, and when AT&T Jones Stadium is packed?
Honestly, it's a crazy fan base. It's I can't even describe it. That's how crazy it is. Especially when we're in the pregame tunnel, and really when it kicks off, everything is on fire. Our fans are on fire. They're screaming their butts off. They're doing everything impossible to make the opposing team make them want to just not want to play in that game. You know what I mean? It's gonna be crazy, especially the winding up to the game is gonna be crazy. I feel like the city of Lubbock is gonna be on a whole nother level when Colorado comes to town.
Thank you, Tahj. Appreciate your time, young man. Appreciate it. Taj Brooks, running back at Texas Tech. Joey McGuire did tell me this, that he said he reminds me of his preparation, film study, and everything else of what he saw from Jalen Petrie and Terrell Bernard, that kind of college football pro.
I think he is an incredible ambassador for Texas Tech, but also the Big 12. And just if you were to put together like a contingent of guys, like here's a handful of college football players to go tour around the country and speak, just promote college football, he'd be a great choice. I mean, I think he's just a great ambassador for the game of football at this level. And Texas Tech is so fortunate that they got an extra year of what he can do both on and off the field. And he's he is the engine of that football team. There's no denying that. There's other parts to it, but he is the heart and soul in a lot of ways. And really remain impressed by him as I have been for quite a while. Love watching him play, and was very nice to talk to him as well. So really appreciate Joey McGuire at Texas Tech for setting that up, and can't state enough just how huge that win was for them. I mean, to go into Ames and win's never easy for anybody. To go do it when you've lost a couple of really tough games is never easy. When you've got a reason to be distracted, it's not easy to do that.
Yep.
But they went in, they got it done. And I will say this again. It's not as though, and I think they'd be the first to tell you, they didn't go in there and just play some great game. Like, it wasn't just like some clean, just no problems whatsoever. They just sliced and that was a tough game that they very could have easily lost. And to their credit, they won that fight and delivered a big blow to Iowa State. And they've got to be feeling really good about that response because that was huge on a lot of different levels.
All right, so thanks to Matt Dowdy, Texas Tech, with the access to a hell of a football player. Here's a note from the Big 12, and Ari kind of brought this up.
If him and Cam Scatteraboo lined up like 20 yards apart and ran at each other and collided, would that be the new Big Bang? Like everything would just...
Yeah, it's a good thing that both of them are out in like the desert a little bit, so there's space like that, like nuclear.
That's
testing.
Where they tested the nukes.
That'd be the next Oppenheimer thing. Is where would just be a bunch of us in like a little thing with a hole this big, and helmets on and everything like that.
I'd do that. I'd put the goggles on and watch that explosion between those two, because man, you talk about two immovable forces or whatever. Those two guys apply, and they're right at the top of a list of a lot of really talented running backs in this league. He referenced R.J. Harvey there, and then obviously Ollie Gordon's not had a good year, but Bryson Washington has now got to be climbing up the ranks as well. So, there's some good backs, and he's right there at the top of the list.
Bracket Cat, you're taking the top 5 fraud list way too personal.
He's a winner this week.
I know, but
be a winner.
Because we lost nothing, we sucked blank, but one bad game doesn't mean we're totally fraudulent. Just a bad day. We in the Big 12 need to support each other and not help the national narrative. I don't think me putting K-State on that fraud list is going to help or hurt anybody.
I kind of saw this coming because I know like how touchy college football fans can be, and when I saw the word fraud, I was like, "Oh, that's some serious language that somebody's going to get upset about."
It's a joke. My own team that I love to death is on it, but they've deserved that for a decade. Also, Craig is right. Talk up Houston, because just calling us a fraud diminishes their amazing accomplishment.
Well, I mean, I knew there was probably going to be some reaction like that, like I said, when I saw the word fraud, and I understand that people can take that a certain kind of way. I don't think it was intended the way that you think, but by definition, I can see where you took it that way.
Yeah, you're taking it too personal.
But it's not anything personal.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're frauds. I don't agree with him.
Right.
I don't agree with K-State and Iowa State being frauds. I do think that
this past weekend they were.
USC is.
Nebraska, USC, Florida State.
They're not USC, though. They're not like, I mean, Iowa State lost their first game at the very end of the game. Now, they were playing pretty fraudulent. Like, you can argue they should have had 1 or 2 losses prior to that. That's fair. So that record was fraudulent in that they're not an unbeaten team any longer. And I think K-State, that just dings their chances for the bigger picture so much. They're not out of the Big 12 title race, but the playoff is completely off the table unless they win out and there's things that happen in their favor. So I think maybe not so much Iowa State, but because they were unbeaten, that's where that comes into play as a contender. And then for K-State, I do think that applies a bit more because they were often looked at the top of the league, and they've dropped a couple games. And losing to Houston, with all due respect to Houston, is not anything you saw coming if you were Chris Kleiman and company. But the Cougs deserve a lot of credit. This league, this is why we've been saying this since before the year started, every game is winnable for every single team. And if that's not more evident than this past weekend, then I don't know how it could be more evident because Houston went and did the thing when they look like they might not win a game this year. They've gone out and they've won way more than we expected to. So any given week, you better have your A game or you will lose that unbeaten record or you will suffer a loss to a team that you didn't expect. But I don't know how at this point how any Big 12 team could not expect anything other than a potential loss lining up against another Big 12 team.
Last week, there were thoughts that Kansas State could win out and get to the college football playoff. They can still do that. But this past weekend, they weren't who you think they were. Maybe they will be this week or whenever they play again. But as far as that's concerned, I think, again, you're taking it a little bit too serious. But appreciate the feedback. I love your passion for Kansas State. Here's a UTSA note. Talk about a team that's beaten up. UTSA upset Memphis. Metal did not sleep Saturday night. The Roadrunners now 4-5 as they try to claw themselves into a bowl eligibility. It's been a tough year for Jeff Traylor. This is what I did not realize. It's the first win for the UTSA football program against a ranked opponent in school history. I thought there might have been a game against somebody that was inside the top 25 that they had won because they've won a bunch of games. Huge win, tough loss for Memphis, and the first ever ranked opponent that UTSA has beaten in their school history, which is not very long, by the way.
Yeah. I'm going to recommend that we keep it here and flip the Bowlesby pod till after Phil.
All right, that's fine. That's fine.
Was
All
Memphis ranked? I don't think
they were 25th in one poll and right outside. Yeah, they were in that. We got to stick somebody in here, so let's find the next best G5 team. And that's kind of what they've done. Memphis is pretty good. Ask Mike Norvell.
Okay, they were number 25 in the coaches poll.
It's ranked. Yeah.
No, I know it is. I'm just saying I didn't realize that because they don't put the coaches poll rankings next to the names typically. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but they are, and they're trying to scratch and claw to get themselves bowl eligible, which I think most of us would have thought they would be. Here's a note about the running backs. Now that we had Taj Brooks on, the running backs, 12 Big 12 players have rushed for 175 yards or more 9 times this season, the most of any conference in America. No other Power 4 conference has more than 4 175-yard or better games, and they now have 9. Scatterboo, Taj Brooks, now Bryson Washington enters the picture. Obviously, there is K-State with kind of a plethora of whoever's the flavor of that game that can get a high number. Obviously, R.J. Harvey. Kiner at Cincinnati's been pretty good. Who am I missing? I mentioned Taj Brooks.
With K-State is basically DJ Giddens. I mean, I know Avery Johnson runs, but Giddens is the dude. Like that's not a committee by any means. He is their guy. So DJ Giddens specifically, not just K-State in general. Devin Neal at Kansas is up there. Utah had Micah Bernard on a pretty good little run, but that's sort of fallen to the wayside now at this point. Corey Kiner at Cincinnati is a very good player as well. Those are some of the names that pop in my head that I think are amongst the top guys in terms of production and just kind of the names that we typically see each week producing or having some type of big impact on a game.
All right, what else do we have, Garrett? Is there something else?
Yeah,
I know
we
we
got
have
a couple
one or
of
two
tweets
more
we gotta get
stories.
to,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, go ahead. USC.
Yes, this was Mike Bone, right?
The guy, when they announced they were moving from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, this is a quote from him. And you talk about a team that is Lendale White, the former running back, among others, Matt Leinart. Lendale White's been nuts. He's lost his mind on this because he's gotten really vulgar with it. But USC and Lincoln Riley, he's destroyed two programs, right? Two Blue Bloods.
Yeah.
Oklahoma the way he left, and also USC now that he's there.
The grass isn't always greener, and it's bizarre, how this has happened. I thought that this would be a home run, but sometimes the pressure of a new thing gets to you and gets to you badly, and I wonder if that's it. I mean, I started thinking about that last year when he's, banning a kid from the press conference and doing it in the way of, usually if you're kind of a veteran coach, which he is, you would say, hey, can I take that kid aside and can we talk to him about this? But instead he arbitrarily did that. That is when you start to hear the chirping a lot. You react. He's become so reactionary, which I did not feel was his vibe before, but now it is.
I've always thought he's a little bit whiny.
Yeah.
Hell of a coach. Had a great thing going. The quarterbacks, the Heismans, was in a really good spot. I can't blame him for wanting to go to USC and have a home that's in Malibu or whatever it is, and he gets a helicopter to go to work. But, man, they are in a bad place, a bad, bad place.
Yeah, that 2 weeks to prepare for both USC and Nebraska ought to make for one hell of a classic here in a couple weekends.
They'll be the number one game in the fraud poll.
Yeah, I mean, it should be. I think those are two of the leading candidates. But, yeah, he's not performed nearly to the level that was anticipated by Mike Bone and USC when they hired him. And I think this is the one saving grace that you have if you're an Oklahoma fan this year. I'm not somebody who lives my life dwelling on Lincoln Riley, but I do understand those fans that can't seem to let that go, especially when you're in a place like you are now, and he's part of the reason why you are where you are. But I don't hold on to grudges like that. Still, though, he has in some ways fired a couple of missiles that have tanked two programs in certain ways these last few years, and I don't know what's really positive, optimism-wise about him at this point. I don't think he's the top of people's hot list now.
Nope.
I don't think he's the next big thing in the NFL.
You think Oklahoma would hire him back if that scenario? That would be.
I don't think so because I just think there's too much bad blood. But I mean, don't think it hasn't crossed my mind. I would be curious to know if he could have a do-over, as much fun as it's been living in SoCal for the past couple of years. Those sunsets and that big house and all that stuff. I'm sure that's made up for a lot of the losses at times because it's not just football 24/7, but for guys like him, it kind of is. And so I do wonder if you trade that, go back on the prairie to win a bit more and have an established program that's competing every year for the conference championship, if not a playoff spot, instead of you're not even ranked, not even at the forefront of anybody's mind, not even in contention, not even anything really type program that he's got now. But then again, I don't know. I mean, I said at the time that was as much a lifestyle choice I felt like in some ways as it was I got to go conquer this new height. I just think there was an appeal there for USC and all that came with that job that it was beyond just winning football games. So
would he have
from that
taken
standpoint,
that job if he knew they were going to the Big Ten?
I don't know. I don't know. You can't run for forever. You can't run for forever. I mean, so if that's the case, then, dude, go coach Oklahoma State then. If you don't want a competition, and I'm not saying that as a knock to the Big 12, but if that's his perception is that, life was good in the Big 12, we're moving, I need to leave now. I don't know. I don't know how much stock I put into that being as big a part of the decision as some people made it out to be, but I don't negate it entirely. I don't negate it entirely. I definitely think that could be a big slice of it. I just don't think that was the overwhelming reason like some people do. I give him the benefit of the doubt that, like, it would be kind of badass to go live in Los Angeles with millions of dollars a year and have a house that overlooks the Pacific Ocean. Like, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, all of that stuff. Yeah. It's not a helicopter you use going to recruiting. It's one you can go and, go anywhere with it. Thank you to the Super Chats. Retired stockbroker with a couple of them. One of them from the top that said, let's get this week started. Thank you, sir. And then Katie Rader. Thank you. Joey's 9-2, by the way, in November. Taj time. He has always finished well when last year didn't finish well at the end of the regular season because Texas spanked him. But he has, Joey, been able to end well, and one of the reasons why they are on this streak of getting bowl eligible.
Well, I don't think they've ever won 4 bowl games in a row, and they've got the opportunity to do that this year. And just the fact that he's made a bowl game in every single season thus far, that's not something a lot of his associates can say around the league. So I think that's a really big deal. And yes, you want the Big 12 championship now, and you want to take a step this program's never really taken, but there does have to be some building along the way. And so I think from that standpoint, there's a lot of good faith that's been built up. Now, that's an ongoing process because, as we've seen, you go lose a couple games in bad fashion, and that goes away pretty quickly. But then you bounce back, you beat Iowa State. Here it is again. It's back. And so they've got a lot left in front of them. You go beat Colorado, man. Hey, bowl eligible is cool, but all of a sudden you're talking 7 wins, maybe 8 wins. I mean, what's the top here that we have to this season? You've got a lot still in front of you, even though there's been a little bit of disappointment. So I think they're in a really good spot, and making bowl games on a regular basis is not nothing. Although we'll see the importance of it, like with the new expanded playoff and kind of how that feels in the years to come. But it's still a big accomplishment, and doing something no one's ever done before that's a positive thing is a positive thing that should be rallied around and celebrated.
All right. Is that it? Louisiana Monroe.
No, we have
Hugh
that
Freeze.
and Hugh Freeze.
Hugh Freeze. I'm the one that sent this in.
Here you go. Look.
I got it.
Okay.
Hugh Freeze. 1-6 SEC home games as the head coach at Auburn. 0-3 against Diego Pavia. 97-31 Pavia's teams has beaten him wherever he's been. 5th time in 7 years as the SEC head coach, including both years at Auburn. Freeze will not have an SEC winning record. I thought he was going to turn them. I thought he was going to
that's a real
tweak
shame.
them a little bit, right? But you know what will happen? They'll beat Alabama to end the season. That's kind of what Auburn has done before.
That's just such a shame that he's struggling.
Yeah.
It's too bad.
Yeah, no, I can see that
Vanderbilt's causing a lot of trouble.
Yeah, they are really causing a lot of trouble.
I love it.
Okay, let me ask you this. I used a different term when I was bringing this up with Garrett and Emery, which I cannot use on the air and I don't want to, but I said it before. I think the era of the phony coach is getting, not that there won't be, but people can sniff it out now, and Hugh Freeze has kind of been exposed, accusing Houston Nutt of something that he did. Then, obviously the not having a burner phone to, call escorts and all that stuff.
The whole blind side not being exactly what it was made out to be.
Exactly. All of this, there's so much fiction around Hugh Freeze. I think people see that now, especially when it comes to recruiting. Now, I don't think he's going anywhere in this offseason for Auburn because he did rope in Deuce Knight, but I think that he's got to show something fast because they're not going to be happy. And I just don't know if he's that dude, because he's been found out.
I think, and guess what? Who won't put up with it? Auburn. I don't know how long they'll let that go. I don't know.
But at some point, though, we're at a point right now, though, is like, who's out there to go get?
Yeah.
Like, we still going Jamie Chadwell? Like, I mean, is that the top of the coaching hot list right now? I don't know, because honestly, I've been too caught up in the season, but I don't feel like there's just like these slam dunk coordinators that are sitting out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like G.J. Kinney, they're 4-4, I think. So I don't think he's ready to leap to Auburn and start winning SEC games, you know? So I feel like with all maybe of the pandemonium of the coaching carousel the last couple of years, like it's dried up the well a little bit, guys, maybe. And then you have this vacuum with a Saban leaving. And I just don't know if you're in Auburn, like, I don't know. I'm sure they've got some hot board list that's got names that make a lot of sense. I don't follow the program closely enough, so I won't play pretend. But I don't think there's some, like Hugh Freeze was supposed to be that hire. Mm-hmm. He was supposed to be that sure thing. And right now he is clearly not. So I don't know that you just turn and go, well, let's go to door B, and here's so-and-so, and he's going to be the savior of the program. So I don't know how quick of a trigger you have.
How long has he been there?
It's been like 3 years now.
How long has Freeze been?
This is second year.
Yeah, second year.
Second year.
We are in such a what have you done for me lately?
Already changed coordinators too, by the way.
Yeah.
Because Ron Roberts and Phil Montgomery were his coordinators last year. Are they his coordinators this year? No, they're not.
No. Well, okay. Montgomery was, of course, at Baylor. Then he did well at Tulsa. Then eventually ran out of gas. Roberts was fired by Dave Aranda after, 2022? Was it 22 or 21? 22?
You wouldn't have fired him after winning the Big 12, so it was 22.
I mean, who knows? But
no, he wouldn't have done that.
Guy knows a lot of football, and he now is still – he's out.
Look, Ron Roberts actually is a big reason that Billy Napier's treading water. He's fixed the defense a little bit.
Yeah. I don't see him on the open market very long, but as far as Hugh Freeze, good luck having a very difficult time. And then this story, and then we get to Phil Bennett. Louisiana Monroe planning to take, and I don't know if they have yet, disciplinary action against assistant coach Cameron Blankenship. There's Coach Blankenship. He lost his mind on the sideline. Players coming off the field. Here's okay, now it's not okay. Like a player had to separate him. He was like 5'7". He lost his mind.
If you watch the clip, there's a couple coaches who are like, chill out, dude. Yep. Like, while that's going on, they're like, dude, calm down. And he's just in such a rage that he's got tunnel vision, and he's so caught up in fighting with that headset cord that he's losing his mind. And, yeah, that was a really bad look. I don't think there was anything but a pretty massive negative reaction. He's apologized, but that was that was a bit too much of a meltdown for anybody's taste. So we'll see how they handle that.
When we come back, Phil Bennett, former Baylor and longtime college football coach. He was the defensive coordinator. His thoughts from what he saw in the Big 12 and some of the coaching stories around the country and more. And this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Ted Teague sent me a couple of text messages with what he has going on right now in November. Up to $12,000 MSRP on the 2024 Jeep Wrangler 4xe Rubicon. Ask about available tax incentives up to $7,500. 370-mile estimated driving range, 49 miles per gallon. Charge at home overnight. America's best and most capable plug-in hybrid. 10-color option for many of the customizable options you have, and so much more. 5-passenger seating and 270 horsepower. That's part of what they have, the 2024 Jeep Wrangler 4xe Rubicon. Also, the 2024 Chrysler Pacifica Touran L, up to 28 miles per gallon, 9-speed automatic transmission, standard daytime running lights, standard automatic headlights, and up to $8,200 off MSRP as they start the month of November. 2024 Jeep Gladiator Mojave. Right now, $10,990 off MSRP, 22-gallon fuel tank, so much, 8 speakers, Fox Shock, and also the 44 axles. It's Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. David Gray, the general sales manager, Ted Teague, CEO and GM.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Phil Bennett, Mondays in our 5 o'clock hour. Always great to see our coach, Phil Bennett, with us on 365 Sports in that beautiful, amazing backyard. The weather hasn't gotten on you today at all?
Well, if you notice, I'm undercover here.
Yeah, you are.
I'm in my outdoor kitchen instead of off my patio, so I had to cover up.
Yeah, you've already told us about that outdoor kitchen, and that's a flex move too, by the way. That you I'll just get in my outdoor kitchen and cover up, and then of course cook. All right, so you were impressed with what Baylor did with Spavital in the run game. Did it remind you of anything you guys used to do back when you'd spread everybody out and then you'd hammer their gut?
Absolutely. You count the numbers, you look at the angles. Early in the game, I went to the game with a big Baylor booster, Jim Wolf, that is the CEO of Adams Corporation. And we were sitting at the Baylor in the press area or the Baylor Club. And I told him, I said, if Avalos stays in this front, I said, it's really going to be interesting to see if Jake will keep running the ball, because a lot of times you get some offensive coordinators, they'll get out of it if even if it's working. And I thought that decided the game. I told him in the text, I said, I was proud of you. I said, you saw your numbers were good, your back was hot, and without question, it won the game for him.
Phil, that was a huge moment for that team, for the fans, to have all the guys back and everything. What was it like for you to kind of witness it? Because it's been a rough 2 years for the fans here, and to kind of have everybody back was to experience that moment was really cool.
Paul, the first thing, the whole day was great. And you know, I want to say this, those players that were on the 13 and 14 team, there is a love for Baylor that is, it's a lifetime love. And their commitment to Baylor and seeing them after the game and during the game, I mean, they were into the game, and you knew that they wanted to win. But I thought it was good for everybody. Of course, the atmosphere was good. I thought that, you know, I think I told you last week, I had a feeling this could be a really good matchup. The only thing that concerned me, and we had a couple of breaks, I thought Kendall did a great job of vertically stretching the field. TCU, we got lucky a couple of times. They dropped a couple of wide open passes in the vertical game, but that happens in big games. But yeah, it was an exciting atmosphere.
Was there anybody you hadn't seen in a while that was kind of extra? I mean, I imagine there's probably a number of guys that you hadn't seen in a while. Can you just like give us some insight on maybe a moment or two here that just really stood out to you?
You know, yeah, guys like Bo Blackshear. Bo was a stud for us.
Oh yeah,
I hadn't seen him in a long time, and just Trevor Valdez. I mean, guys that our scout team quarterback. I mean, some of our. It was just every time you turned around, it was man. I'm glad to see you. I'm glad to see you, and it was genuine. Yeah. As Art said this when he left, he said, Bennett, that was good for our soul, wasn't it? And I said, yes, it was. That's awesome. And you know, you find out you have such a. We have lifelong relationships with these kids. You know, I have that with my coaches. Most of them have died, but you know, R.C. Slocum was my position coach, and we talk weekly. I mean, and we have become lifelong friends, and it was just really nice. And you know, once again, hats off to Sammy Citrano for what he did.
Yeah, Art sent a text to me that said it was mixed emotions, but something that was so good to do. It kind of summarized what you said. Yeah. Phil, you know, every player that I've talked to or texted to about the weekend said they were thrilled with how it all went down. And there was an audio or technical issue with a highlight video that was very impressive, and that did not play right away, so it looked a little bit awkward when they walked on the field. But all I've heard was great stuff from everybody that seemed to be there.
I think Baylor did a great job, Smoak. You know, and of course with Sammy, and it wasn't about Art or myself or Philip Montgomery. It was for those players. And as I say again, they were they love Baylor. You know, I'm going to try to get a hold of David Wetzel, who a lot of the players they said was outstanding, and you know, and Mac and everybody. So and to win the game and to play in that fashion. You know, it was from a start to finish. You knew it was a game, just like we thought it would. And for them to show, as I told Jake, that you know they showed a lot of character. Yeah, I told Jim Wolf, who was with me, when they scored, I think it was 1:20. I said they might have left too much time on the clock for Baylor to get down there. Then I said to him out loud, I said, I wonder if they'll stick with their running game or their flat passing game. And, you know, of course, he had a couple runs in there. I think the first play was a run. And then the fourth down play with Sawyer was just, I mean, it was money.
Was that like a big pair by Aranda? 4th and 9 near midfield. If you fail, then TCU's a couple of out patterns away from beating you at the buzzer themselves?
You know, I immediately thought of the game 2 years ago.
Yep.
I thought to myself, I said, but at the same time, you know, discussing it, my wife said there, why is he doing that? I said, because he wants these kids to know he has confidence in them, and you know, he wants to win. And to me, they took the message without a doubt. They never even thought about coming off. I think the offensive line and the run, I think those guys knew, you know what, we can handle this. And if you remember, I'm telling you something that brought back great memories. The next play, they ran that zone again with Washington. It reminded me of Shock that in the 14 game, the whole line took him almost to the damn goal line.
He said, Coach, he said that he almost had to like tell him, like, put me down. Time's going to run out.
Yeah,
because there's
exactly. I said this might have been too good a play.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you a video that a former Baylor alum sent to us. It is eerie how similar the two runs you're talking about with Bryson and then with Shock. and the field goals and the time and everything else the way it went down.
Only difference between the field goals was the foot of the kicker.
Yeah, lefty and righty. Yeah.
Right.
Spot.
I do have to ask you, though, Phil, I don't know if you saw this, but Chris Callahan ran out for a promotion to help a girl kick a field goal. It's a good thing that he
missed it.
Oh, he shanked it bad.
Hey, I did not see it, but some of the players did. Of course, every kicker there, Jonesy and before him, Aaron, they was that coach. You were always my motivator because I knew if I came off and shanked a kickoff or missed an extra point or field goal, you were right there to get into my ass. And I started laughing. I started laughing. I said, well, you're about the fifth person that told me that. I said, I must have done something right because I had a group of them that wanted to see me.
Yeah, no, they did. I bet that was emotional. Craig?
Coach, does it seem like Sawyer Robertson has a bit of an it factor to him?
I think that watching them play, that he does what really good quarterbacks do. He makes everybody around him better, including their defense. You know, I thought defensively I think TCU had 3.1, 3.2 yards a rush. Now the vertical passing game, they've got to shore that up a little bit. But, yes, I think he makes everybody better. And I'm not saying this, but one of the things that I looked at is just his body language. I mean, he's not I can tell he's not a big talker, but his body language, especially on that 4th and 9, he was ready to go. Nick Florence came by to see me at halftime, and Nick told me that he had, I think he might have worked for him during the summer. And he told me, he said, Coach, you would really like him. He said, he's got it.
Well, anyone recruited by Mike Leach has probably got it, right?
Yes.
So Texas Tech goes into Ames after back-to-back losses and a rough week as far as trying, okay, what's happened to us? What about their win on the road against Iowa State?
We all know how hard it is to play up there. Of course, I coached there for 4 years. And Barry Switzer used to say this. He said, this area, every time I come to Ames, it's like the Twilight Zone. He said, we pull up, everybody's in the parking lot. They're doing those Iowa chops. He said, you're hungry the whole pregame because you could smell it. Nobody's in the stadium. You come back out for opening kickoff, and they're off the rafters. And it's eerie, and it is. I think it was a great win for Joey and his staff. I talked to Taylor Young. Of course, Taylor was calling me after it was over. Who all did you see? He was more interested on who all was. Of course, he was happy, but he said, Coach, who all was there? But they were happy, and he and Brian Nance both wish they could have been there. But he said, Coach, our guys really showed a lot of character, and especially after the way they lost to TCU. That was a huge win.
Phil Bennett with us on 365 Sports every Monday at about 5 o'clock.
Phil, what happened to the Aggies this last week? They fell right into a trap game.
They sure did. And, you know, I think all of us understood that South Carolina was good. You've heard a lot of talking about missed tackles. And I'm going to tell you, I did this for a long time. I've had games. I can go back to the 2014 or 15 Fiesta Bowl. Tackling is a mindset and it's a focus. And you can be in position and not make tackles and lose games. And I think that's what happened to the Aggies. I like what Mike Elko said. He didn't sugarcoat it. He said we didn't tackle. You know, when you miss tackles, usually, almost always, you're out of control. And it's not an effort and it's not a toughness thing. But to be a good tackler, you've got to be focused. You've got to be under control. You've got to overemphasize the wrap, move your feet, your leverage. And they just didn't do that. And I think it put them in a tailspin that they couldn't get out of. And that's a tribute to South Carolina. I do believe this. I believe they're a better team than what they showed. I don't think the issue was at quarterback. I'm a little bit concerned they lost their number one running back that really could have helped them. they didn't rush for the yards that they normally do. And South Carolina rushed for almost 300 yards, which, you could look at the Baylor TCU game. You can tell why Baylor run. They almost ran for 300 yards themselves.
What do you think of the job Willie Fritz is doing down at Houston? I mean, that was kind of all burned down to ashes almost when he arrived, and they are picking up a little win every couple of weeks. They got 3 Big 12 wins now. I don't think anybody saw that coming, but what do you make of the job that he did? And obviously a disappointing loss for Chris Kleiman in Kansas State.
I happen to see, I have a lot of people text me about Kansas State, and one of them is a knowledgeable, really good guy, and he told me, he said that team outplayed us in the second half, just like Baylor did TCU. He said the last drive was not surprising to me because of what they had done previously. And I think Willie is a guy that he lets his coaches coach. I think he has a really good staff. I think right now what they've done is a little bit like the Bears. They found out who their playmakers are on both sides of the ball. Their quarterback is playing better. He had a great run for the winning touchdown. They're operating better. Their coordinators feel better about what they're calling because they know the players better. And I think you're seeing that. And I think that, Baylor is one of those teams. There's a lot of parity, but with Baylor having Houston and West Virginia and Kansas, those are all 3 teams that are dangerous teams. And I think it's going to be a lot of good football the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, and the college football playoff standings come out tomorrow. That's the first week, and there's, of course, you've been in part of that in 14 and probably would have been a part of it much more in 15 and 16 had things gone differently. Your thoughts about what you think we will see?
I think that there will be some people, obviously the 4 leading conferences, who I don't know who the BYU, I guess, in the Big 12. I think there's going to be somebody brought up the scenario of A&M. Let's just say A&M. Let's say A&M wins out. They go to Atlanta and they play Georgia and they lose. They're 10-3. Do they get in with the 10 wins or do they not get in for the 3 losses? What would be y'all's take on that?
I think being in that league, they get in with the 10 wins simply for the fact that they won 10 games. They also got to the SEC championship game. That's how I feel.
What about you, Paul and Dave?
I would think 10 wins they're getting in if they're. I mean, they're an SEC team. I mean, that's going to knock somebody else out.
One of the things.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
What if you have, say you have an 11-2 BYU or 11-2 Iowa State? Do you put a 10-3 SEC team over them?
Here's the issue I have with BYU. They have beaten an SEC team in Arkansas, no matter where they are, and they also have a 38-9 win against Kansas State, and they also beat SMU, who might win the ACC title.
Right.
So they've got some quality wins.
I get what you're saying, though. It's setting up where if you're a Big 12 fan, you don't know if that second team gets in. Yeah.
And let's talk about Boise.
Mm-hmm.
They're going. I feel like this. A friend of mine and I were talking. He's an AD. He said if Boise wins out, they've lost to Oregon, they're in. Yeah. Because they want a non-Power 5 or Power 4 in there.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely think they'd be in there.
There's going to be some questions. Where are you? What are you going to do with Clemson now? What if Clemson ends up, say, 11-1, and they don't win the ACC, or they're tied?
Well, Clemson's not going to be and one of anything because they lost this week. But I think Clemson might have put themselves behind it. They have a really weak schedule, and they've lost.
I'm talking about in conference.
In conference?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. If they win the conference, they're in. But that's the only way I think they're getting in now. because their schedule is not very good. They've lost to the two best teams they've played, so the only way they get in is to beat Miami or SMU, whoever winds up on the other side of that championship game.
Right.
I know this thing.
I think these people thought that they were going to have an easier job with more than 4 teams. I think they're going to have a hornet's nest.
Yeah.
I agree with you, and I think just this conversation we're having goes to show just how fun this is going to be, but also how interesting it's going to be just to see how this actually works now, because here we are, and we're going to get those first rankings tomorrow night. But, yeah, there's a lot of questions about how much do you weigh records in certain leagues versus other leagues, and I think if you're the Big 12, this was kind of a bad weekend with Iowa State and K-State both losing, because now you got BYU, and beyond that, who knows if you got a second team in there or not.
Well, and let's be honest, it's being dominated by the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yes.
And they're at each other's throat thinking, if you look at the Big Ten, you got, of all people, you've got Indiana, you've got Oregon, you got Ohio State.
Yep.
And truthfully, probably all 3 of them are better than anybody in the SEC, in my opinion. I mean, I watched parts of and looked at the replay of the Georgia-Florida game, and I'm telling you, Florida was close to this being a very winnable game for them. If they don't lose their quarterback, I'm not so sure that they don't win that game.
Agreed.
Yeah, Georgia sometimes seems like they're playing with their food. Playing with, like, early on against Alabama, it did cost them because they got such a hole, even though they came back and took the lead.
Smokey, their quarterback has thrown 8 picks the last 3 games. 8.
Yep.
That means
huge.
They must be playing really good defense. And I say this again, I've coached in the SEC. I've had the number 1 defensive in the SEC. It's a great league, but there's other teams out there capable of beating SEC teams.
Absolutely. The playoff's going to be amazing. I can't wait to see how it all unfolds, and it's definitely making for a lot of interesting discussion with still a month to go. I did want to ask you, what are your thoughts on the struggles out at USC for Lincoln Riley? I mean, he had things rolling out there in Norman. We know the big breakup and leaving in the middle of the night with the staff and everything, but has he lost his touch? Is it just a bad pairing? What do you make of that situation?
2 things come to mind. They have missed on some NIL guys, and it's like anything else. If you're missing on recruits, you're struggling. They decided to go with a quarterback that was there from a year ago. And I tell you what else he's missed. I think his staff defensively is not a great staff. And nothing personal, but I just don't feel like either person he's hired, even the young Lynn kid here, is a good young coach, but it's obvious that he might be in over his head with the players that he's using. I think that their players are good, but I don't see any difference makers. What do you guys see?
I think they're a mess. I think he also, it seems like and I don't know if this is why they're not playing well, but he seems to really have rabbit ears, like some coaches do.
Yeah. I would agree with that, David. I think he's sensitive.
Yes.
There's no doubt.
Yes.
I think and I think the one at OU right now is sensitive too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Coach, it's never a good sign when James Franklin the other day.
Yeah.
Look, I know you made some good money in your career, but nobody ever paid you $10 million a year.
No.
When they pay you $10 million a year, that's part of it. Like, you're going to hear some jackasses say some jackass stuff, and you just keep walking through the locker room.
I think you get into this scenario, and I don't like it is what it is now. They feel like if you're making that much money and they're buying that ticket and they're there, they have the right. And you're both right, but at the same time, you have to. I used to always go by the theory that if I'm not asking you for advice, I don't give a damn what you say.
Yeah.
Or what you think. And anything you say will be construed as an excuse. So the bottom line is we haven't played well. We're working at it, and keep that company line that we're working to get better. Now, one of the things I will tell you, I have a close friend that's on that staff. He says they have not come up with much, that they struggle with NIL money, and said they were on some good kids and couldn't get them, couldn't finish the deal. I think SC has always been a job that's been bigger by the media than by really what they have. It's in a that area, and it's not, everybody's not made for Southern California.
Well, it's not like they've been really, really. Now, his first year with Caleb, obviously they were very good, right? But you also bring a quarterback with you that in part of transfer portal that's a once in a lifetime type talent.
Right.
He just seems like he helped. Am I right, guys? He had a student newspaper reporter suspended from practice because of something he may have said. A question he asked. That's
you forget he's a guy that never. I don't think he ever played it down in college football. And we love walk-ons, but he's not a guy that's been in the limelight very much.
No, and he came East Carolina, then to Oklahoma. Yeah, so you get there. Sometimes I think there is the subtle art of not giving an F, Phil, that some coaches need to have, particularly where they are. And I think Saban was particularly good at it. I mean, he would at times get stressed out because he's human, but he also knew that, like, hey, I'm the guy in charge here. Like, I can put all that other stuff out.
People forget, Paul, Nick Saban, I think his first year he lost to ULM.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yes, he did.
It hasn't always been you just, I told you this before. I tell people this. When you have games, just like A&M, I liked what Mike Elko said. Hey, we've got to own this. We've got 21 days till we play again, another SEC school. We got to live with this. And you know what? That's reality. And, people aren't going to like it. I know that. But we're going to be working. And that's one of the things, going back to Baylor, that I think that Dave and his staff have done a really nice job of is they said, hey, cut the outside, the verbiage. Everybody's talking. Let's focus on getting better. And look what's happened. They're getting better.
Yeah, Dave even went to the point where he eliminated pretty much any kind of media other than his sessions on Monday, and then he does a show at a local restaurant on Wednesday or Thursday.
Think about this, Smokey. Who needs to listen to that? I mean, hell, there's nobody knows at that time knows they need to do better than the guy that's got the most to lose.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. How's everything else going with you, man? How's family?
Well, we're hoping Jerry is. Just to say this, my brother Jerry has been ill. He's in the hospital, and we just got him in a rehab place that was a wound care specialist. So we're excited about that.
Good.
And just praying and hoping that this takes up and we can get him out of there.
Well, people who don't know this story, that's Jerry who coached Lyndon Kildare. Was he there with Shock?
Yeah, he was Shock's coach.
Jefferson in '86 won a state championship, and I was there on the sideline filming it when I was in TV. He's also the one that gave me the tip that you were going to go work for Art at Baylor.
Did he?
Yep. I never did tell you that, but
that's all right.
He's the one that said, hey, I just happened to call him and just checking in on something, and he said, hey, by the way, I may have something for you, and he told me. And I start blowing up your phone. Well, man, I'm glad you had a great weekend, man. That's good to know. Good.
Very thankful, and thank you guys. It was, I got to finish this last deal. You'll get a kick out of this. I get a text during the game, and it was one of the nicest texts I've ever had, and it was from our boy Andrew Billings.
Wow!
And it was just, I'm telling you what, I kept my composure. My wife looks at me, she goes, "What's wrong with you?" And I just couldn't keep it together. It was a really beautiful text, and it sort of made the night.
Did you guys call him Uncle Bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, he was just that. Of course, I've told y'all the recruiting story. He was such a jewel. His family, Anthony, his mom, they're wonderful people. And I tell you right now, I got a friend up with the Bears. He's kicking ass up there too.
Mm-hmm. Certainly is.
No, yeah, absolutely, he is. Phil, thank you, man. Always.
Thank you,
so
guys.
many topics today. Thank you very much for your time. Good luck. Tell Jerry, please, if you talk to him again anytime soon, that I said hello. He was one of a kind himself. He was just like his brother Phil, the Bennett family from Marshall, Texas. When we come back, can we use that or not?
What?
The Gundy audio. I just sent you an email.
Oh, I need to find it. I mean,
it's like people are blowing up the chat room about a minute or two.
Let's talk about it, but we do have
we'll
the
take
pod
a break.
to do
We have
too.
the pod coming up as well. What, Craig? 5:33. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com, a business, a building inside the Central Texas marketplace where you can get an MRI in a state-of-the-art imaging machine for $497. You go, what? No, that's the way it's been since they opened their doors. That's what they do. $497. The average MRI is $1,100 or more. I have actually, one time, and I wasn't thinking through it, I had to get an MRI, and it cost me $1,600. That was fun. I didn't have to pay it right away. I paid part of it. Then the insurance looked at it, and they said, no, this is not covered, or maybe the deductible wasn't there. But I did pay one for $1,600. It got the information I needed, but that was ouch. This is $497 or less every single time. State-of-the-art imaging machine. Rob Maxey and all of the owners, Dr. Rob Maxey and the owners, and I have been and I've used it, been in it 4 times, and every time is a fantastic experience. Plus, you get the knowledge and the evidence of what's going on, and so does your doctor who required it or referred you to Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in Waco.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? Invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, who invest their time and experience back to you and your money. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Contact Ben Erlinson at 254-759-8533. Brad Wilson's location at 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, proud sponsors of 365 Sports. Edward Jones, making sense of investing, member SIPC.
Is your car ready for a makeover? Get ready to fall in love with your ride again at City Tire and Battery. City Tire and Battery is family owned and has provided expert service with top quality products since 1942. And with financing available, there's no reason to put off those much needed upgrades. Give your car the love it deserves and go see City Tire and Battery, located at 1502 South Valley Mills in Waco.
New arrivals just dropped at Barefoot Campus Outfitter in Waco. Looking for the best Baylor gear? Barefoot is the place to grab your gear. Game day polos, tees, tanks, caps, clear stadium bags, jewelry, and more. Barefoot Outfitters has all the essentials with unique campus apparel and offering comfortable garments and designs. Long-lasting images that people continue to enjoy wearing time and time again. Located right off I-35 on Spate, or shop at barefootcampusoutfitter.com and get free shipping on orders $75 or more. Go Bears!
Everything we do for you. First Central Credit Union says it's game on. Lower your monthly vehicle payments by refinancing your vehicle with First Central. Make it a winning season with refinancing set to your preferences. You decide the due date and frequency. Financed elsewhere? Save money with a new local game plan. Apply online today. We make it easy to score at firstcentralcu.com.
Membership and loan policy requirements apply. Member NCUA.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Call Deborah Holder at 254-300-7202 to see if you qualify to save up to 40% on your auto insurance.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We will have the Big 12 Bowlsby pot in a second, but a lot of you started, I say a lot of you, a handful of you started to bring up Mike Gundy today at his press conference and said that we should try to play part of it if we can. Craig, set the scene.
Yeah, I'm just going to give context so that people know the question that's being asked. Nothing other than that, so judge for yourself. But the context of what he's answering was being asked about his time as an assistant coach and how that prepared him to handle the roller coaster of being a head coach. That's basically the context that led into this. How did your time as an assistant prepare you to handle this this up and down nature of being a head coach?
Hasn't that a losing season?
Fortunately, in life, most people are weak, and as soon as things start to not go as good as what they thought, they fall apart and they panic. And then they want to point the finger and blame other people. That you see it happen in everyday life. People do it all the time. That's why I refuse to watch the TV and watch the news, because I get tired of people complaining and bitching about this and that versus just doing something about it and trying to figure out a way to make it better. Well, that's what happens in college athletics. And as Jenny said, she's exactly right. It's just on the bigger stage where people can voice their opinion. And in most cases, the people that are negative and voicing their opinion are the same ones that can't pay their own bills. They're not taking care of themselves. They're not taking care of their own family. They're not taking care of their own job, but they have an obligation to speak out and complain about others because it makes them feel better. But then in the end, when they go to bed at night, they're the same failure that they were before they said anything negative about anybody else. So, but here, what we try to do, as I mentioned to the team all the time, is that the very most important thing that you can do in life is make sure that you're maximizing your opportunity to be the best person and be as successful as you can at whatever trade it is that you choose to do. Now, sometimes we might fall short, which in most cases, as I mentioned earlier, 50% of the people do on a Saturday. And I tell them, look, that doesn't make you a failure. Okay. What makes you a failure is if you have a bad attitude about it, you're not willing to try to improve. And if you shut it down, then in my opinion, you're a failure. Now, that's debatable. That's just my opinion. And that's the way that we hold ourselves accountable in this organization.
So that's Mike Gundy. Craig set up the response to the question.
And I don't think it made anything clearer, honestly. I don't think it really made that all that much better or whatever, but I was putting that out there just so people know he just didn't start talking, but he was answering the question about, life as an assistant coach and all that, like what I said a second ago.
That's different than when I first read it. And it's different than maybe some of the chatter in the chat room. And a lot of people will take some of what he has to say and absolutely want to burn down the village, right? But he does make a point that a lot of times if you're a fan or a fan base or whatever it is, it might not even have to be sports, that you want to tell other people what you're doing poorly, and yet you don't take care of yourself.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. That context is not to make it sound better. That was just simply, like I said, to fill in a blank for people so they knew where it was based off of. I don't think it sounds great with or without context. I also am not going to demand his firing, but I'm not an Oklahoma State fan who is basically calling, and how you can see where some people would take that as basically being called poor people who don't know what they're doing and are living miserable lives. Yeah. So I don't think there's a way to spin this. If you're Mike Gundy, it came across very poorly. I'm very open-minded. I can see the dot he was trying to connect in a way, but I have to squint really, really hard and really search for that point that he was trying to make. I think that came across terrible at a terrible time, and I'm not surprised he's getting a lot of backlash for it.
No, I'm not surprised either. I think that, when you throw those things in there, plus he didn't, what the question was, how does being an assistant coach, How did that help you now when you look at the other assistant coaches? He barely, like you said, Greg, answered that question. He had a point to it, but it felt like he used that as an opportunity to verbalize some other frustration.
Yeah, that's stuff that he's veered off course.
Yeah.
And he went to an area where he's clearly been thinking about some of the backlash and some of the fans and some of the negativity and all that's surrounding his program, and he took that moment to dunk on the poors and the morons living miserable lives out there. Like that there's no way that came across well. I don't care if you're even the biggest Mike Gundy defender with context. The context doesn't help.
Yeah.
Like the context doesn't even shed really light. I just gave that to you because instead of just having an answer to a question that you don't know what the question was. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and feel like he needs to be fired or anything for this, but I definitely understand the frustrations of Oklahoma State fans, and that did nothing but pour gasoline, if anything, on a match that was lit. That did more damage than good.
I know we need to get to the pod, and we will. This is from Dustin. Doesn't Mike Gundy know that fans who purchase tickets to go to the games are also helping fund the program? I have a feeling we will have less sold-out games. I sold my November 23rd tickets, and there's just a couple of others that maybe Mike Gundy should heed his own words of wisdom, do something about it. I wanted to play that because that's kind of a hot topic right now on what was said today during his media session.
Yeah, and I'd welcome anybody who's got real thoughts on it to continue, going off in the chat and even throw something at us if you got something on your mind. But yeah, my initial thoughts when I heard it earlier today and then got more context and listened to it a couple more times was like, yeah, that was just very poorly timed, poorly worded, and poorly executed. I know he does not care. He's Mr. Safe, and he's got his millions of dollars. He's not one of the poors like all of us who are just living miserable lives, and that's why we're bitching at Mike Gundy's football team that's lost umpteen games in a row despite being the number 2, if not number 1, arguably, team in the preseason. Like, yeah, it's the fans being too negative. I would want to spin their direction too, but then again, I'd probably also be smarter than that because that's the one thing that you did still have. And now you piss them off. So have fun in the emptier stadium while you lose more games the rest of the way. But he feels like he's probably untouchable, So
no one's
he can get away with that, I guess. I don't know.
No one is untouchable. No one is. But at the same time, for someone who's not listening, he sure had a lot to say about it, too.
Yeah, and when it rains, it pours. I mean, that's something that doesn't happen when you're having a winning season, right? Is he comes out and says something like that. It's when you've lost multiple games in a row.
If they were 10-0, if they were 9-0,
he wouldn't be answering that question.
But yeah, he would still. If you had the experience as assistant coach help you, maybe he would have handled it a little bit.
I just don't know what the context really did to change that because it feels like he didn't really shed light on the knowledge of being an assistant head coach and how that prepared him for that. I don't know. I don't know where that kind of connected.
Maybe he learned from the predecessors or where he has been
that the poors and the morons with miserable lives, their opinions don't matter. Is that what he learned?
Don't let outside noise.
I think that's what it was, but he delivered it terribly. Yeah, he delivered it terribly.
I can't let it. And again, I'm going to say this 5 times today. When you're getting paid as much money as they are, part of the thing they're getting paid for is to eat a little bullshit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, that's part of what you're paid for, and
that's why when you have Lincoln Riley, who's so soft.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you got to have thicker skin than this. You're getting paid a lot of money to have thick skin. You can't be like rabbit ears on everything. Like, you just can't do that.
No, you're right, Paul. Eating blank, like the Florida State fan never did.
Well, here's the good news. They have at TCU, Texas Tech, and Colorado to close the season. So they'll get some wins, right? Yeah, have fun with that.
So, and one of the responses from a couple of media members who are responding to it, what in the hell is Mike Gundy doing? This feels like a direct attack on the fans. It's not their fault that Oklahoma State is 3-6. Now, there we are. We did mention that. Thank you for the update. I think I'm trying to think of who was the one that mentioned it in the chat room, but I'm glad at least that you brought it to our attention. Now, the Bowlesby pod. Here we go. Every Monday through Friday, we have 4 teams in the Big 12, and we start with the Bowlesby pod, and we will start with the unbeaten top 10 ranked BYU Cougars who are holding the flag right now for the Big 12. They had the off week. They have Utah this week. We know about the great rivalry. Utah will be a heavy underdog based on just everything. as Kalani Sitake and company could try to continue to march on?
Yeah, I'm just impressed with them. And look, they've got the Holy War this week. I know that Utah is not where they want to be, but the bottom line is it's still the Holy War, and it's still late at night, and it's going to be loud and rowdy and all of that. So you have to mind your P's and Q's. You have to absolutely be on it. So this is going to be a great game for them this week, another test. But this is the Big 12's best shot right now. So I'm sure that the powers that be are like saying, look, let's not get derailed here.
Yeah, they're in control of their own destiny. I mean, they went out, they're going to win the Big 12, they're going to be in the playoff. Like, all that will take care of itself. But I know there's a lot of BYU fans out there that no matter where they are sitting right now and where Utah is sitting, that this is the Holy War. Throw the records out the damn window. Doesn't matter. I think that shows in Vegas. They're 4-point favorites, guys. Mm-hmm. They're 4-point favorites. You'd think based on these two teams' records and their trajectories, it'd be a lot more than that, but it's not. So I think you're expecting a close game, and I think you definitely would lean BYU's direction, but I think BYU knows better than anybody that they cannot walk into this game feeling like it's just an automatic win. They know better than that. So this will be a tough one. I bet it'll be super physical, and I think Utah will throw the kitchen sink because they're going to have to, quite frankly, to try and have a hope of winning this game. And they'll have a hostile crowd looking to, like, when you're not having a great season, what's the best thing that you can possibly do?
Beat your rival.
Go beat your rival and ruin their season. So that's what Utah can do to save their season, is to go ruin BYU's season. Even though it wouldn't totally ruin it, you could at least knock that 0 off their loss record. So I'm expecting a great game, a nasty physical game, and a heated game. I'm also expecting BYU to ultimately win it, but it's the Holy War. Who knows? They're living good life right now, though, and if they can get past this test, then I think you feel great about the rest of the way.
And they're playing good defense. They do things right. They had the time off, and hopefully they didn't lose any of their momentum from doing that. Now, let's go to the next one in line, Cincinnati. 3-2 in the conference, 5-3 overall. Lost their last game to Colorado, very competitive game, had the week off like a few teams did, and now they play West Virginia. There's a little bit of a series between these two. That game is in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think that this is not the best news for West Virginia, although they did get a win the last time out. But going to see Cincinnati, a team that has been pretty good at home, been pretty good overall, and kind of a surprise. I think that the Bearcats have surprised me, surprised most everybody, and I'll pick Cincinnati in this game without a problem because I think that they're due for a bounce back after a week off, and trying to get that bowl eligibility is where West Virginia, like I said, I'm going to stick to it. I don't know if there's anything that Neil Brown can really do, so Cincinnati better take advantage of a program that's kind of just driving in circles.
Yeah, I think they're two pretty evenly matched teams. This is not a rivalry. They played a lot when they were in the Big East, and then last year was the first time they'd played since those days. So there was a long gap where they didn't play at all, and that got renewed. And I think the hope is that you can kind of, hey, you're familiar and you're close and you can be rivals, right? We need more on the East, and so I think you're hoping that develops into something, but not much in terms of recent history. I do think this will probably be a pretty tightly played game. I lean Cincinnati. I just think they're the better top-to-bottom team, and I think Brennan Sorsby has the ability to take advantage of that West Virginia secondary, but they also have the ability to run the football very effectively, and they play pretty good defense. So I like Cincy here. I do think it's like every game in the Big 12, but especially a game like this, I do think it's really a toss-up. Like the slightest of thing will give you that ultimate edge. But I do like Cincy in this spot, and I think they've done a great job this year of exceeding expectations. They have exceeded expectations. I mean, they're sitting there with 4 games to play, and they only need to win 1 game to get bowl eligible, and they can do that at home this weekend, which would be absolutely huge for Scott Satterfield and that program. So I think they'll be fired up. And there is enough familiarity that will add a little extra spice to this. You go out and beat West Virginia and get bowl eligible.
All right, so there are 2 of the 4 Bowlsby pods, the teams that were added when Texas and Oklahoma made their decision and announcement they were leaving for the SEC. Next in line, sounds like a Rudy's commercial, Houston with the great win at home against K-State.
Don't mess with them. Don't mess with Zion Chris is 3-1 as a starter. Their defense is really good.
We might actually get him this week.
I hope so. Yeah. I can't wait to talk to him. But yeah, Zion Chris is a starter. 3-1 as a starter. They'll punch you right in the kidneys. They don't care. They do not care. Willie Fritz's impact has been seen already. I can't wait to see what is down the line for that team, because I really do admire and like Willie Fritz quite a bit. So yeah. Do not mess with Houston. They need 2 more wins out of the last 3 to get to a bowl game. I don't know if it's going to happen, but at this point, I'm not putting anything past them, given they just went and threw Kansas State down to the ground.
I know that there's usually the coach of the year is the team that wins the conference, and then there's also some that flip the program around. That could be both with Kalani Sitake, but there's a couple of coaches that have outperformed anything we could have imagined, and Dillingham and Fritz. They're going to get votes, but it looks like it's Kalani Sitake's to lose.
Yeah, I would think it probably is. Winning all your games trumps just winning more than expected usually, but doesn't matter. They'll feel pretty good without any shiny trophies, just based on the wins that they've been able to accumulate. I mean, 3 Big 12 wins was not anything that anybody could have foreseen, much less winning back-to-back against Utah and Kansas State. Now, is that the same Utah you expected? No, but beating Kansas State's a big damn deal. That's a big damn deal. They should have beat Oklahoma earlier in the year. And it's not the quarterback that's winning. It's the defense. Mm-hmm. The defense is really good. Like, really good, especially up front. And that's what's keeping them in these low-scoring games and giving them a chance to that. You have a guy like Zion Chris who just busts a big run and makes a couple of plays late in the game. That's the deciding factor, and that's what happened on Saturday night. I like that Donovan Smith still got a role on this team. I think that's really important. I think Mekhi Muse has been a terrific weapon offensively, especially special teams. And they need more. They've got a good little run game, but, I mean, they still have a lot more to do and improve upon offensively. But they've got enough to capitalize like they were able to with Chris's big, long run the other night. But, yeah, that starts with the defense. That starts with the defensive line in particular, and that's where they are really dangerous and where you've seen them holding back-to-back opponents to under 20 points, which is not necessarily all that impressive because Utah's offense sucks, but it is impressive when you look at what Kansas State has typically been able to do, especially on the ground. So it's already gone past expectations. You couldn't have drawn it up too much better. Beating Oklahoma would have made it better. Winning every game would have been better. But I think you're very pleased with where you are at the moment, and to even have a chance to make a bowl game, even if it is having to win all 3 of your last games, to even be in that position, I don't think anybody would have predicted. So they're on a really good trajectory moving forward.
And then it's UCF, where they were able to get a win. R.J. Harvey went off, and UCF right now 4-5 on the year, trying to manage what has been, I think, overall a disappointing season because some teams have jumped up and bit people. Arizona State is one of those, and they're next in that game at Sun Devil Stadium in Tempe against UCF. That's a 2 time zone change from UCF all the way into Tempe, Arizona.
Yeah, I should mention Houston. We didn't talk about their next game because it's not for 2 weeks. It's at Arizona. Yeah. That's a winnable game. We'll see if they're able to go and do that, but that is a winnable game for them. So to UCF, where the hell was Dylan Rizek before? Like, what happened? And Gus Malzahn would not answer the question in the postgame because people were asking him about, so he was your third-string quarterback, and, he just, how did that work to where you've got KJ Jefferson and Ja'Cory Brown, and then we finally get to the point where here's this young Dylan Rizek kid. He was awesome. He was freaking awesome. He's the best quarterback that's played for them all year long, and it took all the way until the 8th, 9 games of the year. I don't know how that worked. Again, Gus wouldn't answer that, even though people were trying to pepper him to get, how was he third string? But you talk about night and day. I mean, my gosh, I would go back to those questions. But, yeah, he made a world of difference. They kicked Arizona up, down, left, right, all over Orlando, Florida. Space game, they always win the space game. They won it big, cool uniforms, big festivities. Big performance from Dylan Rizek. R.J. Harvey had a huge, monstrous game like he typically does, but 184 and 3 touchdowns, so that's especially monstrous. And, you got a quarterback there that's able to to throw the ball effectively. Your receivers suddenly look damn good on Saturday. Like, imagine that.
Yeah,
they looked really good.
I know what you're saying, but those guys are there every day, and there may be some reason that held him back. But
well, I'm saying there's clearly a reason,
Yeah.
and Justin Malzahn's not saying what that reason is.
Yeah.
That's what my whole point of them peppering him with questions. He didn't really answer it, but whatever it was, like, if it wouldn't have happened and this guy started from the beginning, they might be like 9-1 right, or 8-1 right. I'm not kidding. Like, did y'all watch him? Like,
No, I did.
20 of 25, 294, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, had 55 yards rushing. Like, that was an oasis in the middle of the desert compared to what quarterback play they were getting prior to that. So that made a world of difference.
They had a transfer in, right?
That made a world of difference, and I'm interested to see how he plays the rest of the way.
Am I right, though? In
What?
the NIL, they had a quarterback that moved
They
in?
did,
Yeah.
but, I mean,
Well,
I'm
just
curious to
saying.
know why they had him, and they go,
Well,
we
it's
still need another guy.
It's like some people have said, if you watch Sawyer Robertson compared to what you had with DeQuan Finn, why? Well, it was a bang-bang decision, right? Now, Rizek was down at the bottom on the depth chart.
Well, something happened because they didn't just get one guy. They got 2 guys.
Yeah, they did.
They got Ja'Cory Brown, too. So
Yeah, from
I don't
Miami.
know what happened, but Dylan Rizek, at least for that week, he looked really good.
Houston, by the way, team defense, 24th in the country.
Yeah, they're
You
really
mentioned
good.
24th in the country. Yeah, that was something we even heard earlier in the year when they weren't actually putting wins together.
UCF at Arizona State is going to be a really interesting game this weekend. That ought to be a hell of a contest. Sun Devils got Levitt back, and they looked really, really good. So that's 2 teams coming in off really good performances and 2 big quarterback performances. And, yeah, I think that ought to be a heck of a game on Saturday in Tempe. And if you're an Arizona State fan, Kenny Dillingham cannot make it clear. Y'all need to show up this weekend.
Yeah.
Like, they've won some games. Like, it's time to sell out. And I think he couldn't have made that more clear in his post game.
All right, when we come back, Paul and his top 5. And then, of course, don't forget tonight, 10:30 on the local CW at 365 Sports Tonight. Here, we'll be right back with Paul Catalina at his top 5.
Most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
Time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome in. Hope you had a great weekend. It's the Top 5, presented by TexasBeefHouse.com, bidonbeef.com, promo code 365sports. Let's get into our Week 10 awards. Number 5, and this is my favorite award of the week, the What's Up Award goes to Clemson. Why would you say am I bringing back a old commercial from the late 90s? Well, guess what was popular in the late 90s? Clemsoning.
It was a word that we all use to describe when Clemson would do something that cost them the game in a big spot. And they used to do it over and over and over again. Then Dabo Swinney came along and made sure that didn't happen anymore. But guess what? This weekend, Clemsoning was back, everyone. It was back. And who brought it back? None other than the man himself, Dabo Swinney, who, down 12 with less than 5 minutes to go, decided instead of going for 2 to try to cut it to 11 and making it a field goal and a touchdown with another 2-point conversion, he decided to kick the point and keep it at 12. Actually, he was down 13, so he decided to go down 12, which would be 2 touchdowns. Everyone watching this game, including the announcers, was dumbstruck by this decision, and Clemson didn't lose anyway. Louisville pretty much took it to them the whole game, but then at the end, Dabo cut their legs out from under them and was going to have to make them score 2 touchdowns in less than 5 minutes against a team that hadn't really stopped all day. So, I know this commercial isn't coming back, but if it did, so is, at least for this week, Clemsoning. There was too much joy in my voice as I was describing that. I'm supposed to be in the middle of the road. Well, guess what? On this one, I'm not. It was hilarious to me. My team sucks. Let me take joy in something. Number 4, the You Can Only Be You award goes to Texas A&M. 1 week after maybe the biggest win in the last decade at Texas A&M, a win that shot them up to the top of the SEC rankings. They went to South Carolina and got boat raced badly by the Gamecocks, 44-20. Now, doesn't really affect them. They're in the SEC. Everybody can take one loss, but it is their second loss in the season and closes their playoff window even smaller because they still have Texas coming on down the road. And after they got beat that bad, you've got to wonder, how good is this team really? I don't know, but the SEC, a gigantic mess. I'm here for it, but A&M could not follow up the huge win against LSU with a win over South Carolina. In fact, after halftime, it wasn't even a game. It was 20-20. It ended 44-20. Number 3, the Fire Extinguisher Award goes to Dave Aranda. He entered this year with a hotter seat than any coach in the country. By far, he was the hottest seat in the country. After the last-second win, 37-34 over TCU, Dave Aranda, I feel safe in saying this, not going anywhere. All he's got to do really is get one more win out of the next 3, and West Virginia, Houston, Kansas should have a win in there. If not, go 7-5 or 8-4, which would be a huge improvement from a year ago. So congratulations to Dave Aranda. You have put out the fire like this brave gentleman here. Number 2, the Exactly What Sankey Wants Award goes to the ACC. Look, SMU beats Pitt, and look, that's Pitt's first loss, but really going to put them behind the 8 ball. SMU's only loss is to an undefeated BYU team. Miami won again and won huge over Duke, even though Manny Diaz gave them all they wanted for a half. But the ACC, because Clemson's now out, they're not getting back in this thing, has started to give them excuses for leaving all but one team out of the playoff, whoever their champion is. And if you're in the Big 12 going, hey, at least it's not us, wait a week, it's probably you, because the Big 12 also had a crazy week, losing Iowa State's undefeated record to a 23-22 loss to Texas Tech. And number 1, the Needed That One award. You see the transition there? Texas Tech had lost 2 games in a row, had a little bit of a fuss last week, hissy fit, kerfuffle, I don't know what we're going to call it, about the headsets. Nothing was going on, but they really needed a win. They needed a big road win in a tough place to play in Iowa State. They got it. They absolutely got it, and picked themselves up off the floor after 2 rough weeks for the Red Raiders, and they threw the Big 12 further into chaos. But congratulations, at least for 1 week, Texas Tech, you're up off the mat, and you can look down and maybe just get into that Big 12 title game. But you got Colorado coming up. That's pretty scary, and a big noon kickoff. That is the top 5. Now we say bye-bye.
I don't like the way you're ending those things.
I don't care.
I just
See this face?
I'm gonna. Yeah, you're like Mike Gundy.
Doesn't
All
count.
right, so we are done. Craig has a clarification.
Yeah, and that's not. It's something that bothered me, and I realized what I was doing as the segment was wrapping because I went and sought clarity as I was watching UCF this weekend. I was saying it's risk. I don't think I was saying that properly. I'm a big stickler for pronunciation.
Yeah, because if I would have pronounced it like that, you would have jumped in my bit. Yeah.
But Dylan Risk is the UCF's quarterback. I was saying with Rizzik. That's Risk. I just want to clarify that so everybody knows moving forward. Dylan Risk. He had a great game for UCF.
All right, Craig, thank you for clearing that up. Thanks to Emery Winter. He's working on 365 Sports tonight, which is 10:30 tonight. Garrett Ross for running the mothership, and Paul Catalina with being here, but also with the new graphics to spice it up even more to make it easier for you to understand what we're talking about and or just easier to read, too. Thanks to our great sponsors. The college football pick'em link is up. Winner gets a $100 gift card to TexasBeefHouse.com. Thanks to Kim Coulter. I'm David Smoak. Thank you for your time. Back at it again tomorrow. This is 365 Sports.